Chapter 337. On the eastern border of Grand Xia, the loyal and brave Marquis led his army to counterattack. His army of 100,000 attacked the Alliance army of the Four Extreme Realms. The counterattack came so suddenly that the Alliance army couldn't react in time. No one had expected that the Grand Xia army that had been retreating time and time again would still dare to attack at this time. Within Wuxia City, when Xianji received the battle report, he was also shocked. In his view, there was no reason for Grand Xia to counterattack at this time. Such an outcome was like throwing an egg at a rock. At the same time, on the other side, Jingwu led his army to cooperate with the loyal and brave Marquis, attacking the Alliance army with all their strength. Grand Xia's dukes and marquises all moved. The fury that the army had suppressed for a long time was unleashed, and their combat strength was on full display. This was especially true for the army that the loyal and brave Marquis had brought from the southeast. A pointless struggle. You don't know the difference between life and death. Looking at the rising smoke, Xianji snorted coldly and soared out of Wuxia City. The swarm of white foggy insects flew out, covering the sky and the sun. Just as the swarm of insects left the body, three figures appeared. Saber lights and shadows crossed each other. "It's you again." Xianji's expression was cold when he saw the three people in front of him. He waved his hand, and his creation weapon appeared, blocking the three of them with one sword. With a clanging sound, killing light shot out, brushing past one's ear. The coldness was bone-piercing. "Xianji, you're at the end of your road." Meng Xuanji's expression was ice-cold. The golden feather saber shone with a piercing golden light. "With just you? What a joke." Xianji sneered. His sword was like 1,000 caddies, and he knocked the three of them away. His hands formed hand seals, and rays of white light rose up. In the next moment, a huge pair of moth wings spread out, and a terrifying pressure spread out. "As expected, they're monsters," Jianghua said coldly. His figure flashed, and the leaning moon saber in his hand slashed down like a falling mountain. With a loud boom, the overturning moon shook the sword of creation. The gilded feather drake arrived right after. The sharpest weapon in the world collided with the sword of creation. An ear-piercing sound rang out, causing everyone to shiver in fear. In the instant that the three god armaments were locked in a stalemate, Wan Fengchen activated remembrance, and a blood-red light flashed as he slashed down, causing killing intent to fill the sky. Xianji's expression turned serious. He turned his palm and condensed his essence, pushing the two away. The sword of creation went up to meet the remembrance divine might. His hatred reached the peak, and his heart was filled with heartlessness. The chaotic wind and dust scarlet fate enveloped his body. His saber fate was like a torrential storm, fast and ruthless. Jianghua, Meng Xuanji, and the Tao Mantis worked together to block the creation divine weapon. Sounds of killing and cold light filled the air. In this final battle, no one held anything back. The sword was merciless, and the malevolent blade was even more merciless. The four people's bodies were dyed red. Xianji had the white moth's evil origin, and his self-healing ability was extraordinary. He was injured but not killed. Even though he was fighting 1 against 3, he wasn't at a disadvantage. However, the three of them didn't panic at all. They raised their cultivation to the limit, and cooperated with each other to eliminate the source of the disaster. The clashing sounds became more and more frequent. In the blink of an eye, dozens of life and death moves had been exchanged. The three of them took turns to fight. Their weapons constantly clashed, scattering specks of starlight. The weapons wailed, as if they were crying for this battle of life and death. From chaotic wind in Jianghua, Meng Xuanji had unknowingly become the main attacker. She waved the golden feather saber, and every move she made collided with the creation divine weapon. Nianqing and Qingyu supported each other. The three strongest sabers in the world clashed, creating a shocking scene. Xianji, who was fighting, gradually felt that something was wrong. However, in a battle of life and death, how could he be distracted for a moment? The crisscrossing lights covered his doubts. Clang! There was another violent collision. After an unknown number of moves, the divine weapon of creation let out a mournful cry. A dazzling crack appeared and quietly spread out. Jianghua and Chaotic Wind saw this and combined their sabers, slashing down at the same time. Xianji subconsciously waved his sword to block, but with an ear-piercing crack, the creation divine weapon was broken and scattered. Nianqing and Qingyu broke the creation sword and landed on Xianji's body. In an instant blood blossomed, dyeing his white armor red. Damn it! Xianji flipped his palms, enduring the pain, and slammed them on the two's chests. Vigorous true yuan exploded, instantly sending the two flying. Blood splattered, dyeing the horizon red. The three were all heavily injured. After 100 feet, the two sabers returned, and killing lights rose again. Meng Xuanji also rushed forward, the golden feather saber unparalleled sharpness chasing after his soul. The three creation divine weapons trembled at the same time, and killing intent completely erupted from them. You can't be forgiven. Xianji grabbed the two sabers with both hands. Evil yuan rose around his body, summoning the white fog bug tide. The golden feather saber entered Xianji's body, bringing out a pool of blood. But at this moment, the endless white fog in the distance rapidly flew back, covering the sky and the sun. The bug tide quickly merged into Xianji's body. In the next moment, a dazzling white light soared into the sky. All the energy gathered, and the evil yuan was refined to the extreme. The three of them were the first to bear the brunt. They were affected by the evil yuan, and retreated several steps. Can such a monster really be killed? You're not lying to me, right? Jiang Hua wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, mocking himself. I don't know. Ning Chen said we could kill him. If he's lying, then let's go find him while he's still alive, said Meng Xuanji gravely. If I believe him, I'd rather believe that there are ghosts in this world. Jiang Hua looked at the monster in front of him. Let's not talk nonsense. Be careful, we might have to go all out next. Luan Fengchen's feet moved, turning into a red blur. Nianqing's light flowed, shocking the world with her blood. As expected, friends are used to block sabers. Jiang Hua sighed helplessly and followed suit. The moonlight shone brightly, and the sword spirit appeared. A faintly discernible dragon's roar appeared and spiraled into the sky, illuminating the mortal world. Meng Xuanji also activated all her true yuan, and poured it into the golden feather lance. A terrifying sharpness immediately appeared on the lance. Space was unable to bear it, and it shattered inch by inch. The battle started again. The three prides were fighting against the evil origin. Sharp killing lights flashed through the evil origin that filled the sky. Blood splattered everywhere. It was hard to tell whether the evil origin would be victorious, or the evil origin would be stronger than the evil origin. Just as the three of them were bathed in blood, in the Lihua dynasty's camp, Bai Yi appeared. After taking 2 steps, his appearance completely changed. In the commander's camp, Genie Marquis and a few other generals were discussing the battle. When they saw that figure, they were startled. Greetings, King Xianhua. Genie Marquis immediately walked down from the main seat and half knelt. The other generals also immediately knelt, respectfully bowing to the general who controlled half of the Lihua dynasty's troops. The people kneeling on the ground started to think. None of them had thought that King Xianhua would also come to the divine great land. Did something happen in the Lihua dynasty? Genie Marquis, listen to my order. Amidst the calm voice, a complete golden commander's seal appeared in front of the 5 of them. A dragon and a tiger were gathered together, emitting brilliant light, shocking all the generals present. At this moment, the last trace of doubt in their hearts was dispelled, and they respectfully listened to the order. The commander's seal of the Lihua dynasty could not be faked, not to mention the one who held it was King Xianhua. The name Xianhua was not only a symbol of military power in the Lihua dynasty, but it was also the belief of a strong martial force. The innate bloodline of the imperial family represented a meaning that was not inferior to the Lihua emperor. After the order was given, the Lihua dynasty's army moved out. Under the cover of the night, they suddenly changed sides. They were like the sharpest knife behind the allied army, piercing through all their defenses in an instant. The moment the smoke rose, Zhongyong Marquis and Jingwu Duke, who had been waiting for an opportunity, immediately led their troops to the east. They attacked fiercely from the front, cooperating with the Lihua dynasty to completely destroy the chaotic formation of the allied army. The flames of war lit up the sky in the dark night. This slaughter was bloody and cruel. However, war was cruel in the first place. There was no mercy. In the past, Ning Chun had asked for the military power from Li Yue for today's counterattack. The allied army was not united in the first place. There were many conflicts between the dynasties. Under the powerful force of the master of the Four Extreme Realm and Xianji, they were barely able to unite. What he needed was an opportunity to disintegrate the allied army from the inside. In the flames of war, Ning Chun walked out and looked at the battle in the distance. His eyes squinted slightly. It was about time to end it. He hoped that they could succeed. 400 miles away, the battle had reached its final stage. The injuries of the four were getting more and more serious. Xianji was fighting 1 against 3. Although he had the evil qi, he had lost his good fortune divine weapon. He no longer had the absolute advantage. Rivers and mountains drink hatred, blood maples October red. Luan Fengchen once again used his ultimate technique. His slender remembrance blade shone brightly. Endless blood-colored light rose up like October maples, spreading out and filling the sky with red. Moon shadow. Combining with the Huayan blade, the moonlight shone and the Qingyu disappeared. In the next moment, where the moonlight shone, a flowing shadow appeared out of thin air and slashed down. 2 streams of blood flew up. The moth's wings on Xianji's back were broken. At the same time, Meng Xuanji took a palm strike head-on. The golden feather blade pierced through her body, bringing out another stream of blood. I am undying. Your struggles are futile. Xianji endured the pain in his chest and back. He gathered his evil qi in his palms and sent the 3 flying. The blood that flowed out was quickly filled up by white mist. The speed of regeneration was visible to the naked eye, far exceeding the limits of a human. Ugh! At this moment, a blood-colored blade hidden at the end of the bloody maples appeared. The blade pierced through Xianji's body and dyed the sky red. Xianji's body shook, and he lowered his head in disbelief. Looking at the blade in his chest, he wanted to pull it out, but it was already too late. The berserk blood-colored karmic luck that suddenly erupted instantly engulfed the moth in his chest. The moth's main body that couldn't disperse in time was instantly destroyed amidst its miserable cries. The blood-colored light flowed and dissipated along with the moth. The only thing left behind was the empty hole in his heart. How could this be? This was an unbelievable truth. No matter what, the schemer couldn't accept it. Xianji looked at his empty chest, his eyes filled with confusion. Why? Why? His white armor scattered, revealing his blue robes. In the next moment he fell from the sky. He had spent his entire life scheming. And in the end, he had died because of someone else's scheme. How sad was that? How much ambition and betrayal had disappeared along with him. From now on, there would be no more Xianji in this world. Chapter 338. Xianji died in battle, and the Four Extremities Alliance suffered a crushing defeat. The calamity of the Four Extremities finally came to an end. Ning Chun handed the Yin-Yang Jade to Luan Fengchen. The Lihua dynasty's army, and the remnants of the Four Extremities Alliance, entered the spatial tunnel in Ascension Valley, and used the teleportation formation in the Sacred Land to return to the Four Extremities realm. The Yin-Yang Jade was then destroyed by the Golden Feather Centipede, completely cutting off the path between the 2 realms. However, Worryless had lost half of her Dao source, and her strength was greatly reduced. She could not attempt to seal the spatial tunnel. After the calamity of the Four Extremities ended, the Eternal Night sect did not move and fell into silence. The Great Xia finally welcomed a short period of peace. The remaining martial marquises could also breathe a sigh of relief. At this moment, the peace in front of them was extremely precious. Almost half of the 10 martial marquises of the Great Xia died in just 5 years. This was the heaviest loss of the Great Xia in the past 1,000 years. The war temporarily stopped, and the martial marquises took the time to heal their wounds. After years of fighting, almost every martial marquis had accumulated new and old wounds. They needed a long time to rest. Qi was naughty, and was chased around the courtyard by Ningxi. When Ning Chun returned, Qi-er's mother sent the little prince over to be taught. The backyard of the Marquis Manor was much livelier than before. After the calamity, Worryless could not travel for a short period of time. Staying in the Marquis manor was the best choice. Ningchen rarely stayed in the manor for a few days. He did not travel all day. During the day, he spent most of his time in the Weiyang Palace with Qing Ning to take care of Zhangsun and help with political matters. After the chaos of the Confucian sect, only Hua Prince and Yan Prince were left in the Great Xia imperial family. Needless to say, even Hua Prince, who had fought with the Great Xia Emperor all his life, did not have any interest in the throne. The choice of the new emperor of the Great Xia fell on Qi'er without any doubt. This might be the most peaceful succession of the throne in history. With Ning Chun in the imperial city, the officials in the court did not dare to say anything. However, although the choice of the throne was decided, Qi'er was still too young. Who knew how many years it would take for him to take over the throne? The matter of choosing a new marquis was once again put on the agenda. The candidates were still the two people that Zhang Sun had mentioned at that time. The head of the Supreme Court, Kong Yu, and the Marquis of Anling. Ning Chen's final answer was Marquis Anling, which also surprised all the officials in the court. Everyone knew that the current head of the Dali department was a trusted aide promoted by Marquis Jiming. In terms of merit, he didn't belong to Marquis Anling at all. They thought that the final candidate would be the head of the Dali department, but they didn't expect such a change. Kong Yu didn't understand. The first time he mustered up the courage to come to the Marquis's residence to ask why, but he wasn't able to enter. The next day, he was directly transferred out of the imperial city by an imperial decree and sent to the southeastern region of Great Xia. This result shocked the officials in the court. They didn't understand what the Marquis meant by this. When Kong Yu left the capital, Ningchen only left a few words for him. Come back with your own ability. My position is yours. In the southeast of Great Xia, adjacent to the Minyang country, there were constant wars. Ning Chen's intention was clear. He wanted Kong Yu to personally experience the cruelty of war and the burden that every martial marquis had to shoulder. A martial marquis of Great Xia not only represented glory, but also responsibility. After Marquis Anling was conferred the title of Martial Marquis, the An clan prospered and became the most popular clan in Great Xia. Ning Chen didn't care about these things because news came from Northern Meng that Mingyu was coming. The Emperor of Northern Meng personally coming to Great Xia was no small matter. The two dynasties had only stopped fighting for a few years, and the relationship between them was still tense. This time, Mingyu came as the emperor of a dynasty, giving Ning Chen a headache. He still didn't understand what this little girl wanted to do, and Zhang Sun handed over the reception to him. For a time, he was so busy that he didn't know where to go. Half a month later, Northern Meng's team entered Great Xia and would arrive soon. Everyone in Great Xia was nervous. The Emperor of Northern Meng had personally come. As long as they entered Great Xia's territory, their safety was the responsibility of Great Xia. No matter what, no accidents could happen. Ningchen wasn't too worried about Mingyu's safety. Northern Meng's visiting team was escorted by 3,000 circular blade imperial guards. Most importantly, Yang Hong was also here. He was Fan Lingyue's most trusted subordinate in the past. 5 years ago, he was the first of the younger generation to enter the Xiantian realm. After 5 years, his strength must be even more unfathomable. The young general of the past had now become the pillar of Northern Meng. The change of era always came so quickly. Before one could look back, everything had become a thing of the past. The army heading south was majestic, rushing towards the direction of the imperial city of the Great Xia dynasty without stopping. Behind the imperial dragon carriage, on the luxurious phoenix carriage, Su Fian looked at the familiar central plains, a look of reminiscence flashing in her beautiful eyes. When she came back again, things were the same but people were different. Jiming Marquis was too powerful. That night, he had completely shattered their hopes of reviving Hushi dynasty. She was very clear that whether it was her or the Wang clan, it would be very difficult for them to rise again. She didn't know why the little emperor wanted to visit Great Xia at this time. It was the first time in the history of the Divine Prefecture that an emperor personally came to visit another dynasty, especially since the two dynasties had just stopped fighting. However, Jiming Marquis was in Great Xia's imperial city. Presumably, the entire world would surround Great Xia. Whoever wanted to make a move against the little emperor would have to seriously consider it. A person's reputation was like a tree's shadow. Everyone knew how ruthless Jiming Marquis was. The bloody lesson of the Confucian sect in Great Wisdom City had just happened. No one wanted to become the next target. In Jiming Marquis Manor, Lu Ruoxi saw the Marquis return from Endless Palace. A trace of worry flashed across her face. She said softly, "Marquis, the summons from Desolate City. Are you really not going?" "I've been too busy recently." Although he said this, Ning Chen was still on edge. Mu Bai was obviously settling accounts at an opportune time. If he went now, being taught a lesson would be a light punishment. If Mu Bai was unhappy and asked him to prove his sword, who could he reason with? "Brother, are you afraid to go?" Ning Shi was a typical example of touching the pot that didn't boil. She came up and asked suspiciously, "Go away. If you talk nonsense again, I'll have her ladyship immediately find someone to marry you off." Ning Chen pushed the former's face away. "I won't say any more." Hearing Ning Chen's threat, Ning Shi immediately shut her mouth. What she was most afraid of now was Nyang Yang bringing up this matter again. This older brother of hers didn't speak up for her at all. He was usually so arrogant, but when he saw Nyang Yang and big sis Qing Ning, his guts were even smaller than hers. "Sword 1 didn't come again, right?" Ning Chen looked at Ruoxi and asked. "No." Lu Ruoxi gently shook her head. Ning Chen nodded. Then he would wait until Mu Bai's anger subsided. "Where's Chi'er?" Ning Chen asked. "Writing in the room," Lu Ruoxi replied. Ning Chen nodded and walked towards the study. Pushing open the door, he saw a small figure standing on a chair, trying hard to write on the table. Because the body was too small, it always looked a little difficult. "Master." Chi'er raised his small head and obediently called out. "Good, continue writing." Ning Chen responded and walked to the table, quietly watching the little guy write. This was the future of the Grand Xia, and also the last thing Zi entrusted to him. He would do his best to teach and not disappoint his good friend. Time passed so quickly. It had been more than 5 years since he came to this world, to Fan Lingyue's passing, and to the end of the chaos of the four extremes. The change of era was inevitable, and the future would ultimately fall on Qi, and Mingyue's generation. The only thing he could do was to do his best to deliver an era of peace. He had finally completed half of the task Fan Lingyue entrusted to him before his death. The matter of the four extremes had basically been resolved. Next was the Eternal Night Cult. He was very clear that the current peace was just the illusion before the storm. Once the two sides went to war again, it would be the real decisive moment. The Eternal Night Cult's foundation was bottomless, especially this Eternal Night Cult leader, who had been silent for so many years. If he said he didn't have any ulterior motives, no one would believe him. Fortunately, Zhong Qianxiu had suffered a blow from his sword. Even if he didn't die, he wouldn't appear again in a short period of time. The absence of one of the 3 temple lords would reduce a lot of pressure for the Grand Xia. In addition, the whereabouts of the no scroll that the headmaster and Dao Kuei had mentioned were still unknown. This was something he had been worried about. From the headmaster's words, it wasn't hard to tell that the no scroll would play a big role in the future, so he had to continue searching for it. In the next half a month, Zhang Sun came to the Marquis mansion again, because there was news from northern Meng. Mingyue had said that she would stay in the Marquis mansion. This was related to the face of the dynasty, so Zhang Sun naturally couldn't be careless. The number of maids in the Marquis mansion was already pitifully small, and coupled with the fact that there were so many of them getting married over the years, he basically couldn't find one even after walking around the mansion for half a day. Seeing this situation, Zhang Sun frowned immediately. An imperial decree was issued, and the maids in the palace were immediately sent to the Marquis mansion in batches. For a time, the empty Marquis mansion became unusually lively. In front of the mansion, Ning Chen felt a little dizzy when he saw so many beautiful maids. He wanted to say that there was no need for so much trouble, but before he could open his mouth, he was glared at by Zhang Sun, so he didn't dare to say more. 3 days later, the team from Northern Meng finally arrived. The mighty team entered from the North City Gate and rushed towards the Marquis mansion. The 2 most distinguished people of Northern Meng sat in the Dragon and Phoenix chariot, one at the front and the other at the back. On the dragon chariot, an excessively handsome young emperor with supreme majesty sat quietly. After 5 years, the little girl from back then had gradually grown up, holding up the sky of northern Meng with her delicate body. The great Xia had a place specially for receiving foreign guests. But since the emperor of northern Meng had already spoken, no one would speak out against such a small matter. Beside the dragon chariot, a gentle and beautiful woman followed quietly, her focused eyes never leaving the little figure on the dragon chariot. In Zijing's eyes, there used to be only the military counselor of northern Meng, but now there was only Mingyue entrusted by the military counselor. Seeing Zijing, a strange look flashed across Ningchen's eyes. This woman was finally going to enter the innate realm. He didn't expect Fan Lingyue's judgment to be so amazing. Chapter 339. The arrival of the northern Meng emperor had become the most important thing in Great Xia. There were no eternal friends between the empires, nor were there eternal enemies. Zhang Sun placed great importance on the visit of the northern Meng emperor. At this time, one more friend and one more enemy made a huge difference to Great Xia. There were many people in the northern Meng envoy group, so they couldn't all stay in the Marquis residence. Mingyu stayed with some important people, while the rest were arranged by the minister of Honglu. Yang Hong didn't come to the Marquis residence, nor would he come. Back then, the death of the military advisor had something to do with the Jiming Marquis. Even if the two empires stopped fighting, they were still enemies. Ningchen didn't say anything about Yang Hong's choice. Some people were destined to never be friends, and he and Yang Hong were like that. They had fought many times when they were alive, and all the grudges had dissipated. Fan Lingyue had let go, but the ones he couldn't let go were those who were still alive. This was also why no one in the world could compare to the woman who had left a deep mark on the history of the divine prefecture. Perhaps, such a woman was so stunning that even the heavens were jealous of her. That was why she was only given a short life of 20 years. After the northern Meng envoy group entered the Marquis residence, they rested for 2 days to wash off the dust on their bodies, and prepared to officially negotiate with Great Xia. The matter of receiving the foreign guests was handled by the minister of Honglu, so Ningchen didn't want to interfere. Normally, the emperor of a dynasty wouldn't visit another dynasty. Since Mingyu came personally, there must be something she couldn't solve. Being in another dynasty, the guards around Mingyu were even tighter. The east wing of the Marquis residence was protected by layers of circular blade guards. Even if Ningchen wanted to meet her alone, it wasn't that easy. Among the circular blade guards, there was a Xiantian expert who hid very well. Ningchen could only vaguely sense it, but he couldn't find out who it was. Every dynasty had its own secrets, and it was impossible to see all of them. For 3 days, there was no movement from the east wing of the Marquis residence. 3 days later, Zhang Sun met the northern Meng emperor in the Zhenhua Hall of Great Xia. After 5 years, the two people with the highest positions in the two dynasties met again, but their standpoints were different. In the past, Mingyu was a hostage that Ningchen brought to Great Xia. In reality, her life and death were not in his hands. Now, the little girl had grown up and ruled the world. She already had the ability to sit on the same level as Zhang Sun. Mingyue was grateful. However, in front of the interests of the dynasty, she did not give in at all, and negotiated seriously with Zhang Sun. Beiming lacked grain and herbs, while Great Xia lacked horses. In this chaotic era, only by strengthening oneself could they protect themselves. Just as the two sides were in a deadlock over the issue of the war horses, a young man walked out from the group of northern Meng's envoys. There was a hint of arrogance in his eyes as he said, "Your Majesty, this humble subject has a request, but I don't know if I should say it." Mingyu frowned when she saw who it was. "Speak." Dizhang's mouth curled up as he coldly laughed. "I've heard that Great Xia is ruled by Confucianism and has many talents. Although I'm not that talented, I would like to see it for myself." As the sound of his voice faded, the entire hall trembled. The countenances of the various subjects of Grand Xia all turned unsightly. The chaos of the Confucian sect had already become an unconcealable pain in Grand Xia. The words of the subject of northern Meng were undoubtedly tearing open the scars of Grand Xia. Mingyue's expression immediately turned cold. She had come this time to form an alliance with Great Xia, not to become enemies. This Di Jiang was too brazen. At the banquet, Ning Chun sat there quietly, drinking his wine. He wasn't too interested in this matter. The reason he had come was to make up the numbers, so that he wouldn't be scolded by Zhang Sun. Just as Mingyue was about to shout at Di Jiang, Yang Hong, who had been silent this entire time, calmly said, "Di Jiang's words make sense. Since that's the case, let's have a competition. If Great Xia wins, all the conditions will be set by you. If Beiming wins, you won't be able to object to any of my emperor's requests." Yang Hong's words caused Mingyue to swallow them back down. Yang Ho had contributed greatly to Northern Meng, so she had to give him some face. "How should we compete?" Zhang Sun frowned. "One civil round, one martial round. As for the third round, there shouldn't be a need." After saying that, Yang Hong looked at the subject who had spoken and said coldly, "Di Jiang, you will compete in the first round. If you lose, there's no need to return. I will definitely not let you down." Di Jiang cupped his fists and bowed, his eyes filled with pride. Since Beiming had already made their move, Great Xia naturally couldn't show any weakness. Zhang Suan's gaze swept over the disinterested Ning Chun. So he didn't force him, and chose another person. Minister of Honglu. Zhang Sun looked at one of the 9 ministers, the minister of Honglu. "You can go." Of the 9 ministers, other than the minister of Guanglu, who had died in the Confucian sect's rebellion, the minister of Honglu had the best literary talent. It shouldn't be too much of a problem for him to deal with this youth from Beiming. "Yes." The minister of Honglu stepped out and respectfully bowed, accepting Zhang Suan's order. "Please choose a poem, a song or a song," Di Jiang arrogantly said. "Since sire." As the Minister of Chamberlain of Dependencies spoke, Ning Chun, who had been quietly drinking, suddenly looked out of the imperial palace in shock. "Ning Chun, come to the academy." An old voice echoed in his ears, hoarse and tired. Even from 1,000 miles away, he still couldn't stop it. There was only one person in the world who could do this, the teacher. Hearing the teacher summon him, Ning Chun immediately stood up and bowed to Zhang Sun. He didn't have time to explain, and left under everyone's gazes. Since the teacher summoned him, it should be something extremely important. Zhang Sun was enough to deal with this. In the academy, the teacher stood quietly, looking at desolate city in the east. He said, "Mu Bai, lend me your sword." The primal chaos sword essence in desolate cities, sword pool violently trembled. In the next moment, it turned into a streak of light and flew toward Tiansong Academy. In front of the sword pool, Mu Bai looked at the academy. His always calm eyes finally revealed a trace of fluctuation. What a powerful righteous chi. The no scroll has appeared. Seeing the white figure quickly appear in front of the academy, the teacher didn't waste any time and bluntly said. Hearing this, Ning Chun's expression shook. A moment later, he recovered and asked, "Where is it?" "The homeland of Western Buddhism." The teacher looked at the distant west, a trace of vicissitude flashing through his turbid eyes. Hearing this, Ning Chun's expression changed. Wasn't that a place that only existed in legends? Before he could finish speaking, 2 figures came from the distance, one in front and one behind. One was noble and extraordinary, and the other was charming. It was Prince Yen and Ah Man. Seeing the 2 of them come, Ning Chun immediately had a bad feeling. Something wasn't right. "Ah Man, there's not much time left. Cherish it," Prince Yen said calmly and walked to the side, giving the 2 of them time. Ah Man nodded and put down the sword rack on her back. She walked to Ning Chun and gently hugged him. "Remember to miss me." She was so close to his heart that every heartbeat was abnormally clear. A trace of panic flashed through Ning Chun's heart. He tightly hugged the person in his arms, afraid that she would disappear in the next moment. "Why?" Ning Chun raised his head, looked at the teacher and questioned. Everyone knew that the Marquis of the Great Xia was extraordinarily intelligent. How could he not understand the teacher's meaning? The teacher had chosen Prince Yen and Ah Man to go to the homeland of Western Buddhism, but he couldn't understand why Ah Man was included. In the future, the entire divine land of the eastern region will face a great calamity. The No Scroll is indispensable. The homeland of Western Buddhism is full of powerful people. To get the No Scroll, you have to be at least the top of the three disasters realm. Speaking of this, the teacher glanced at the two of them and sighed softly. You two are the only people in the world who are connected. One of you must go together. Otherwise, even if you can get the No Scroll, you can't send it back. Ningchen tightly hugged the person in his arms. His heart felt like it was being cut by a knife. It was the safety of the divine land again. Did he have to let the people around him leave one by one for the so-called safety of the divine land? Then what was the point of him protecting the world? Knowing destiny was originally heartless. It was his eldest grandson, Man Xiazi, and the others who made him gradually worry about them. He had been busy all his life and never regretted it. But today, Wild was also going to leave. This made Jinming's exhausted heart feel the greatest fear. After this farewell, who knew if they would meet again in the future? In the imperial palace of the barbarian dynasty, the barbarian king stood in front of the throne and looked in the direction of the academy. A touch of sadness appeared on his majestic face. If the divine land really faced a great calamity in the future, the homeland of Western Buddhism might be the last pure land. At this moment, it was difficult to distinguish between a king and a loving father. For the sake of his daughter's safety, he was willing to give up his familial love, and only hoped that our man could live a peaceful life. Dao Kuei, make your move. Time waits for no one, the headmaster said, and immediately stepped forward. The great righteousness around him surged. The chaos sword essence in his hand suddenly changed. A sharp edge appeared and shone in the world. In the headmaster's hand, the sharpened divine weapon was unparalleled. At this moment, it even surpassed the sharpness of the golden feather lance. Large areas of the space around the sword collapsed. At the same time, in the Taotia's stomach in the Chizhou mountain range, Dao Kuei waved his hand and a zither appeared. He plucked the strings and an earth-shattering sword light flew out of the Chizhou mountain range and towards the Tiansong Academy. For 1,000 years, the strongest cultivators of the Confucian sect and the Taoist sect attacked at the same time. The light of the two swords converged together. The fate of the Confucian sect and the Taoist sect increased their strength. The indestructible space barrier collapsed, and a temporary flaw appeared. Man, let's go, Yanqin Prince said. He glanced at the divine land one last time, and then stepped into it. You have to be well. Man gently pushed the person in front of her away. She held back her tears and smiled. Then she turned around and left. It was difficult to meet and difficult to part. The moment she turned around, 2 drops of tears fell silently. Only she knew the pain of parting. Ning Chen stretched out his hand to stop her. At this moment, he didn't know why he stopped her. Was he leaving her behind to face the future calamity together? She disappeared, and he couldn't see her anymore. He raised his hand, but didn't put it down. A cold wind blew. The white-robed Marquis didn't move. Who knew what he was waiting for? Or maybe he was hoping for something. In Desolate City, Bai looked at the leaving legend of the Grand Xia and sighed regretfully. He hadn't thought that even in the end, he wouldn't have the chance to fight. He would probably never meet such an opponent again in his life. Chapter 340. A man's departure finally froze knowing Destiny's tired heart. From now on, it would be hard to meld it. It was not that he only knew how to cherish her when she left, but that he no longer had the chance to. Knowing destiny. When did he ever know his own destiny? Above the void, the space tunnel opened by the headmaster and Dao Kuei gradually closed. At this moment, a red light shone brightly, and an aurora flashed past. In a blink of an eye, it disappeared. After the red light, the sound of Sanskrit was faintly heard. Golden light shone, and a group of people walked out on auspicious light. Their faces were calm, and they held the Sua Luo in their hands. Their black hair danced in the air, and their Buddha nature was extraordinary. I am Jian Bodhi. May I ask if you have seen anyone pass by here? The pilgrim asked politely. Seeing the Buddha in front of him, Ning Chen hid the emotions in his eyes and bowed as well. He said calmly, Master, I vaguely saw that they had gone to the west. Thank you, almsgiver. Jian Bodhi bowed and thanked him. Then he walked away. Step by step, he seemed to be walking slowly, but he disappeared quickly. The pilgrim's path never stopped. Ningchen looked at the Buddha who left. After he came back to his senses, he said goodbye to the headmaster and turned to leave. In the sword pool of the barren city, the chaos sword essence had returned. Its sharpness was gone. Although it was only for a moment, Mu Bai saw an even stronger sword. It was the headmaster's sword. In the west of the Great Xia, a red shadow gathered and disappeared again in a blink of an eye. Amipa. The pilgrim walked over with a calm face. His black hair fluttered in the wind. The Sualuo scepter in his hand shone with golden light, trapping the red shadow. Bald donkey, you have chased me all the way here from the homeland of West Buddha. Are you still not going to give up? The red shadow said coldly. Rong Lu, it's time for you to pay for your sins. Jian Bodhi pinched his fingers and an ancient sword flew out from the Sualuo scepter. The Buddha used his army to stop disasters by killing. If you alone? Don't even think about it. The red figure walked out and waved his hand. Red light gathered, and a blood-red long saber appeared. When the blood-red saber appeared, the Buddhist light immediately dimmed. Buddha and Rong exchanged blows. Their swords and sabers collided. The golden light was dazzling, and the bloody light was bone-piercing. Brilliant streaks of light were drawn across the divine prefecture. The battle had lasted for 100 years, from the homeland of West Buddha, all the way to the divine prefecture of the eastern region. It was still difficult to determine the outcome. In the pilgrim's hand, the Sualuo ancient sword shone with Buddhist light. Sword after sword, it was filled with mercy. The red shadow was surrounded by a bloody aura. The ominous weapon had drunk the blood of thousands of Buddhas. The bloody killing light made the heaven and earth tremble. Bodhi heart meditation, overcoming calamity and heavenly perception. Bodhi's moves appeared as boundless Buddhist light spread out beneath their feet. The sword Bodhi was filled with a merciful Buddhist nature. He unleashed his murderous heart. The Sualuo ancient sword flashed with a brilliant light. The sword moved, the body moved, the heavens and earth split apart. In the blood light, Rong Lu's expression turned cold. He flipped his hands and blood electricity surged. With the support of blood electricity, the blood light of the murderous weapon became even brighter. It forcefully opened up a blood-colored world in the Buddhist light. The sword arrived, and the saber shone. With a loud bang, blood flowed out from the corner of Rong Lu's mouth. He took advantage of the momentum and quickly left. The sword Bodhi took 2 steps forward. His body flashed with a golden light and chased after him. He swore to kill this disaster that threatened the world. In front of the Eternal Night sect, the bloody shadow passed through quickly and disappeared. The sword Bodhi followed closely behind. Just as he was about to continue the chase, the surrounding demonic aura suddenly spread. A white-haired demonic cultivator appeared and blocked his path. The Buddha and the demonic cultivator met. The atmosphere suddenly froze. The sword Bodhi looked at the demonic cultivator that appeared in front of him. A strange look flashed across his calm eyes. A person who has lost his heart is pitiful. The Bodhi was merciful. He sighed softly. The golden leaves on the Sualuo scepter swayed gently. Bells rang, echoing in the demonic cultivator's ears. Reincarnation, heaven burial. The ink sword of reincarnation rose again. It was still merciless and merciless. The demonic cultivator moved to kill. Thousands of sword auras surged out. The sword shadow pressed forward. The sword Bodhi's right hand pointed forward. Golden light gathered on his finger, and the sword aura shattered and disappeared. In the next moment, reincarnation arrived. The Bodhi used his finger as a sword. With a clang, he blocked the tip of the ink sword. The Buddha and demonic auras confronted each other. The terrifying might caused the surrounding space to constantly distort. With such ability, you shouldn't have stepped onto the demonic path. The sword Bodhi's left hand formed a seal. Buddhist light flourished, and the swastika spread between heaven and earth. It was about to completely seal the two of them. However, at this moment, a hand reached out from their battle and pulled Xiazi away. Buddha, don't you think you're going overboard by attacking my people before my sect? The Eternal Night sect leader said indifferently. The battle was stopped. The sword Bodhi no longer attacked. He withdrew his true yuan and looked at the demonic cultivator in front of him. He sighed again. It was a pity that his original heart was covered in dust. The Bodhi turned and left, continuing his journey. The Eternal Night sect leader looked at this unfamiliar expert, who had suddenly appeared in the divine continent. He narrowed his eyes. It seemed that this temporary balance would soon be broken again. The path of the divine continent was rugged and difficult to traverse. Everywhere the army passed, not a single blade of grass grew. The Bodhi couldn't bear it. He chanted an incantation, and rain fell from the sky, nourishing the land ravaged by the army. Merciful Buddha, extradite Hang. The sword Bodhi walked forward step by step. Wherever the Sualua landed, the dried vegetation would be reborn. Specks of green could be vaguely seen. A light breeze brushed past, and the Bodhi's black hair fluttered. The Sualua Luo hit his sword. It didn't look like a Buddha, but it was true compassion. In the Zhenhua Hall of the Grand Xia Imperial Palace, both civil and military had lost. Ning Chun returned and sat down full of thoughts. He didn't care about what had happened in the hall. Yang Heng looked at the people who had returned and frowned. Although Beimeng had won, there was no joy in his heart. Could it be that the victory between the two dynasties was so meaningless in the eyes of the Jinming Marquis? Seeing Ning Chen's expression, a trace of worry flashed through Zhang Xuan's heart. Something wasn't right. In her eyes, Ning Chen had always been a strong person. She had never seen him reveal such desolate emotions. Behind Zhang Sun, Qing Ning sensed something. Although Ning Chen had tried his best to hide it, it wasn't easy to hide it from the two people present. Jinming Marquis, do you dare fight? Yang Heng walked out. Ning Chen raised his head and looked at the person in front of him. Why? Why do you have so many reasons? I'll only ask you one thing. Do you dare or not? Yang Heng said coldly. I'm not interested. Ning Chen shook his head. Yang Ho, don't be impudent. Leave. Ming Yu's face finally revealed anger. Coward. Yang Heng snorted coldly and turned to leave. The Grand Xia officials felt abnormally stifled. They had lost 2 rounds in a row, and the Jinming Marquis had refused to fight. The Grand Xia had lost all face. If you agree to a bet, you must accept your loss. Today's discussion will be carried out according to Beimeng's requests. Zhang Sun opened his mouth, putting an end to this gamble. Victory and defeat were common in war. On the negotiation table, there would always be a side that would give in. This time, the Grand Xia had lost. There was nothing to argue about. The negotiations had temporarily ended. The Grand Xia officials and Beimeng's envoy had all left the Jinhua Palace. Ning Chen got up and left, quickly walking towards the Marquis residence. Teacher and Dao Kuei had bitterly held on for 1,000 years. Every time they used their martial arts, they would become weaker. This time, they didn't hesitate to use up their remaining lifespan to open the space barrier. It could be seen how important the scroll of nothingness was. He didn't know what the calamity teacher was talking about was, but it definitely had something to do with the Eternal Night cult. When Fan Lingyue passed away, he had also mentioned the Eternal Night cult. He seemed to know something. The scroll of chaos could interfere with the mysteries of heaven. It was the only thing in the world that could restrain the scroll of light. The Eternal Night cult's Eternal Night cult was undoubtedly the scroll of light. Fan Lingyue should have seen something from the Eternal Night cult. Senior and Man had left, and the absolute power of Grand Xia was once again at a disadvantage. He couldn't deal with the Eternal Night cult master alone. Now the only thing he had that could threaten the Eternal Night cult master was the heaven-pardoning arrow. Unfortunately, it was also broken by the demon sword when he saved Wang Yu. Although the war hadn't started yet, it was only a matter of time. Before that, he had to find a way to repair the heaven-pardoning arrow. Ning Chen returned to the Marquis residence. As soon as he entered the backyard, he found a woman quietly waiting there. Zijing. Ning Chen frowned slightly and asked, "What's the matter?" "Marquis, Her Majesty asked you to wait for a while. She'll be here soon." Zijing bowed respectfully and said. Ning Chen nodded. He had always thought that Ming Yu must have something important to tell him, if she came personally. It was just that they hadn't met in the past 2 days, so he didn't have a chance to ask. After Zijing delivered the message, she left quickly and didn't stay for a moment longer. The sky gradually darkened. Just as the lanterns were lit, Ming Yu and Zijing arrived. Behind them, 10 circular blade imperial guards followed closely. You all wait outside. We have some matters to discuss with the Jiming Marquis. Mingyu stopped and looked at the 10 people behind her. Yes. The 10 circular blade imperial guards respectfully replied. Ning Chen's eyes narrowed. It seemed that the hidden Xiantian expert was among these 10 people. The 3 of them entered the backyard. Zijing stood guard outside the room, giving them some space to talk. Within the room, Ning Chen looked at little Mingyu and softly asked, "What's going on? Why did you come personally?" Mingyu's eyes were slightly red as she said, "The old minister has passed away and Marquis Yang is now in power. I might not be able to hide my identity any longer." Were those circular blade imperial guards outside arranged by Yang Hong? Ning Chen frowned. Yes. Mingyu nodded. Hearing this, Ning Chen immediately understood the general situation. Yang Hong didn't seem like a crafty person, but his way of doing things was much more radical than the old minister. Those circular blade imperial guards had a Xiantian expert. If Mingyu wanted to keep her identity a secret, it would be very dangerous even with Zijing's help. With Yang Hong's personality, if he discovered that Mingyu was a woman, the consequences would be unimaginable. Zijing, come in. Ning Chen opened his mouth. Zijing heard the call and entered the room. She stood there quietly waiting for orders. Zijing, how long until you reach the Xiantian realm? Ning Chen asked seriously. Marquis, it's within these 2 days. But I'm not sure if I can pass, so I'm still hesitating. Zijing respectfully replied. She had been entrusted by the military advisor to protect His Majesty with all her strength. Reaching the Xiantian realm was filled with danger. It wasn't as simple as one imagined. If she failed, the terrifying backlash was not something an ordinary person could endure. Ning Chen understood Zijing's worries. After thinking for a moment, he said seriously, "There's no need to delay anymore. Let's start tonight." Chapter 341. The night sky was filled with stars and the moon was like a hook, sprinkling a faint chill on the horizon. There was nothing else on this ordinary night. At this moment, in the manner of the Marquis of Jiming, a purple pillar of light shot up into the sky, illuminating the entire imperial city of Grand Xia. Outside the pillar of light, Ning Chen stood quietly. Blood mist swirled around his body. The cries of a phoenix shook the heavens as the shape of a phoenix condensed. A powerful pressure rippled between heaven and earth, causing all the warriors in the imperial city to feel fear. The heavenly demonic tribulation descended from the light pillar. Previously, Ning Chen's cultivation level was not high enough, so he could not see it. But now he could see it clearly. Traces of demonic chi loomed in the light pillar, and was about to enter the purple crystal's spiritual consciousness. The first pre-celestial tribulation, the heavenly demon tribulation, had always been considered to be the tribulation with the greatest variables among the 5 tribulations. It was not something that could be decided by strength. Someone as strong as the great Xia Martial Marquis, who was almost invincible in the post-celestial stage, could even fight against pre-celestials. However, because of the killing karma, before the heavenly demon tribulation, he had a narrow escape. The purple crystal was not as powerful as the Martial Marquis of the great Xia dynasty. However, it did not have that much killing karma. Passing this tribulation, the chances of success were 50-50. However, Zijing was the only trustworthy person by Mingyu's side. Ning Chen could not allow any accidents to happen to the other 50%. He unleashed all of his martial arts, wanting to compete with the heavens and earth. The phoenix shape entered Ning Chen's body, and a bloody mist spread out. The 3 scrolls rotated, and behind Ning Chen, the image of the primal chaos splitting open appeared again. Heaven and earth were separated, and 10,000 things were born. Snowflakes drifted down, and boundless cold air surged out. Ice and snow swirled within a radius of 10 zhang, turning everything into a world of silver. Phoenix cries resounded through the 9 heavens. At this moment, even the pillar of light that symbolized the Xiantian realm began to tremble. Cold chi rushed upwards, violently colliding with the descending demonic chi. When someone other than the person transcending the tribulation interfered with the heavenly tribulation, the heavens and earth immediately sensed it. The demonic qi instantly increased by hundreds and thousands of times and descended. Ning Chen's expression turned serious. He formed a sword with the fingers of his right hand. The silver light was extremely bright, and the wind and snow were swirling. The surging power met the majestic demon qi. Knowing destiny stopped the demonic calamity, the scene in the Marquis' mansion was brilliant. Everyone looked at the shocking scene with their mouths agape. For thousands of years, no one had ever heard of a heavenly tribulation being blocked by external forces. The heavenly Tao was merciless. It would send down even more terrifying punishments to those who went against the heavens. Boundless devil qi surged in the purple light pillar that connected the sky. It continued to grow, and the purple light expanded. In the blink of an eye, the plain-clothed figure was engulfed as well. The heavenly demonic tribulation had reached its peak since ancient times. The purple light was devoured by the demonic qi, turning completely black. The terrifying power was earth-shattering. Someone interfered with the heavenly tribulation? What a lunatic! Cultivators from all over the divine prefecture saw this terrifying scene. How could anyone survive such demonic might? In the west of the Great Xia, above the scorched earth, a blood-colored figure floated up and down. When he saw the pillar of light rising from the east, he took a step in the air and sped away. Not long after, the sound of footsteps could be heard as the weathered sword Bodhi chased after him. After 2 steps he disappeared. In the Jiming Marquis mansion, the omen tribulation was getting more and more terrifying. After Ning Chen intervened, the omen tribulation reached the 4th level of the primordial tribulation, and was still getting stronger. Boundless demonic qi completely engulfed the two. Heaven was enraged, wanting to wipe out those who blasphemed against heaven's face. Ning Chen released all of his cultivation to protect the purple crystal. Using his finger as a sword, he resisted the omen tribulation from the sky. Thunder rumbled in the sky. Dark clouds covered the stars in the sky. The moonlight was not visible, making the cold night even gloomier. The Jiming Marquis had reached the 4th level of the primordial tribulation for some time. Heaven sensed it, and the omen tribulation from the Jiming Marquis quickly surpassed this limit and kept getting stronger. In the reception yard, Yang Hong looked in the direction of the Marquis mansion with sparkling eyes. He was shocked. In the Jiming Marquis mansion, there was only one person who could do this. In less than 5 years, he had grown to such a level. In the Marquis mansion, the 3 scrolls appeared at the same time. With the support of the phoenix shape, Ning Chen, who had reached the peak of his cultivation, was surrounded by endless sword will. Under the gaze of all the people in the divine prefecture, the silver sword light shot up into the sky. Oh, not bad. In front of the sword pool in the barren city, Mu Bai looked at the sword in the distance. A strange look flashed in his eyes. This junior had surprised him again. With such cultivation in the sword, he could barely be a match for him. This brat had schemed too much and concealed too much of his own sharpness. Only with this sword did people see his true strength. In the Jiming Marquis mansion, the demonic qi collapsed. The light pillar connecting the sky and the earth regained its purple color. Ning Chen withdrew his aura and stood quietly at the side waiting. Now he only needed to wait for the purple crystal to succeed. The omen tribulation had dispersed. The purple crystal had entered the Khanate realm. There would be no more accidents. Just as the people in the Marquis mansion were relieved, Ning Chen's expression suddenly changed. His figure flashed and blocked the purple light. With a loud bang, the ground of the Marquis mansion shook violently. Under Ning Chen's feet, cracks spread out rapidly. A shocking scene appeared in front of everyone. The sudden appearance of the red figure had an aura so strong that it was frightening. With just one palm, it showed its extraordinary strength. Ning Chen blocked the palm. The qi and blood in his body kept churning. He turned his palm into a sword and broke the sword. Junior naive, Rong Lu turned his palm to block the sword light. His vigorous vital energy was activated. His whole body was as bright as a blood phoenix. He made another powerful move. Seeing that the opponent's cultivation was so strong that it was difficult to shake him, Ning Chen's eyes focused. He clenched his fists and 2 rays of light flew out. He used his sword and saber to block the bloody catastrophe. With a violent sound, the sky and earth were filled with dust. Ningchen took half a step back. His hands that were holding the sword and saber overflowed with blood and dripped down the body of the sword and saber. It was beyond imagination. It was strange and powerful. Prince Yan was not here. The Jiming Marquis mansion became the strongest force in the imperial city. With just one move, it announced the difficulty of this battle. The dynasty that had been invincible for 1,000 years finally showed the helplessness of having one foot in the grave. It was such a big imperial city, but it did not have the three disasters. It could only rely on a martial marquis, who was barely 20 years old, to support it. Ronglu looked at the purple crystal in the light pillar that connected the sky. He raised his hand and the blood light spread. He was going to swallow this rare medicine to help heal the body that was hurt by the bald donkey. Ningchen saw this. His water figure flashed and instantly appeared between the two. His sword and saber split the sky and the earth. Heavenly tomes. Feeling this familiar breath, Ronglu's eyes flashed with surprise. There was someone in this strange realm who practiced martial arts from the heavenly tomes. Seeing the legendary moves of the heavenly tomes, Ronglu also became serious. He waved his hand and the blood weapon appeared. With one slash, the sky and earth became gray. There was a loud crash. In the storm of sand, a waterfall of blood spilled. Ronglu took a few steps back, his face cold. Bald donkey, it's you again. Ba. The storm of sand scattered. A peaceful figure walked out from behind Ningchen. The swaying leaves of the sora tree rustled in the wind. It was pleasing to the ear and made people feel refreshed. Benefactor, we meet again. Jian Bodhi twirled his fingers and bowed. Thank you for your help. Ningchen returned the bow and said seriously, I should be the one apologizing for the trouble I brought. Jian Bodhi sighed softly. If he had not chased Ronglu to this place, this strange pure land would not have suffered such a disaster. Bald donkey, are you done with the small talk? On the side, Ronglu snorted. The red light around him rolled and gathered endless Hao Yuan. Buddha is merciful. Jian Bodhi waved his hand, and the Sora sword appeared. Endless Buddhist light shone in the world, illuminating the dark world. At this moment, Purple Crystal's tribulation was finally over. Ningchen waved his hand and sent her away. He looked at the Buddha beside him and asked, Grandmaster, do you mind working together? On the path of evil, there is no need for formalities. Benefactor, please, Jian Bodhi replied calmly. Ningchen nodded and walked to the side. His sword and saber shone as they fought the enemy together. Bald donkey, your hypocrisy is really disgusting. Ronglu sneered and moved. He was the first to attack. The stalemate that had lasted for 100 years began once more. The only difference was that there was a young knowing destiny Marquis joining the battle. Jian Bodhi held the Sora sword and met the blood blade of calamity. With a boom, the light illuminated the world. Earth scroll, earth destruction, mountain destruction. Ningchen knew that if this continued, the entire Marquis estate, and even the imperial city would not be safe. He stabbed his sword into the ground, and thousands of sword lights soared into the sky. They were endless and flew out from under Ronglu. Ronglu's eyes narrowed. He took a step and leaped into the air. His saber spun like the wind and broke thousands of swords. A loud rumble shook the sky. Jian Bodhi and Ningchen leaped up at the same time. One in front and one behind, they killed Ronglu together. After 100 years of stalemate, with the addition of one more person, the balance gradually tilted. Even someone as strong as Ronglu found it difficult to deal with the joint attack of Green Sparrow and Sora. Green Sparrow slashed Ronglu's left arm. Blood splattered. However, a red light flashed and the blood flowed backward. His injury quickly healed. Be careful, the Rong tribe's martial arts are special. As the king of the Rong tribe, Ronglu's control of blood vitality is the best in the world. Jian Bodhi reminded. His figure flashed and Sora slashed toward Ronglu's heart. Hearing the reminder, Ningchen also focused. Green Sparrow condensed frost and stopped dragging the battle. Every move was harmful to Ronglu's vitals. Below the battle, Mingyu's face was full of worry. The war in the Divine Prefecture had just stopped. Who would have thought that such a terrifying expert would appear again? Could he win against this bad guy? At this time, Yang Hong arrived. He looked at the battle in the sky with a serious expression. In the battle, phoenix cries filled the sky. In order to resist the enemy, Ning Chen had no choice but to forcefully condense the phoenix form again. Immediately, a waterfall of blood mist surged. It was the backlash of the cold and fire. Ronglu dodged the Sora sword. Looking at the faintly discernible phoenix figure, his eyes narrowed. What a powerful blood vitality. Your strength is mine. Ronglu's figure flashed. He gathered his essence and forcefully captured the phoenix figure. The bloody light was in front of him. In that moment of crisis, a dazzling blade light soared into the sky. Carrying the might of the heavens and the power of the phoenix form, it slashed down. Heaven is not guilty. The heaven-parting blade split the blood mist in the sky and fell straight down. Ronglu's eyes narrowed. He changed the direction of his palm and rose into the sky to meet the blade light. The two moves collided. The void rumbled. At the same time, Sora's brilliance rose. Bodhi moved to kill. A sword slashed, and blood fell like a waterfall. Ugh! Ronglu spat out a mouthful of blood. He endured the injury and forcefully counterattacked. Suddenly, thousands of blood calamities surged like a tide. The world lost its color. Blood calamity collapses the world. A powerful force spread out. In an instant, a 1,000-foot radius turned into a world of blood. Chapter 342. In the sky, the heavy blood yuan vibrated. The two people who bore the brunt of it were both pushed back a few steps, their mouths red. Jian Bodhi stopped himself and gently twisted his fingers. The swastika spread out and condensed Supreme Buddha energy, breaking through the blood yuan world. Bodhi heart meditation boundless dharma. Bodhi opened his Buddha energy, and the swastika rotated. In the blood yuan world a Buddha light rose, opening up a Buddha world. On the other side, Ning Chen also focused. With a turn of his sword and blade, the life scroll was pushed to the limit. Extreme cold chi spread out, breaking through the blood yuan world. Three people, three different worlds, flickering with different splendor under the night sky, world-shocking scenes, shocking the world. Bodhi thought pardoned sins. In the Buddha light, the shining Sua Luo ancient sword drew Bodhi's true essence and turned it into a sin-severing weapon. Facing Bodhi's move, Ronglu's expression was very serious. Vast chi gathered around him and suddenly, the blood-red blade pierced through the clouds. With a boom, the two forces collided. Both sides were injured and took 3 steps back. An opportunity appeared. Ning Chen's sword and blade shot out. The next moment, Sua Luo disappeared and turned into a white light, instantly appearing in front of Ronglu. In the blood yuan world, the sky and earth disappeared. The blade light covered the moon, and the sword tip paved the way. Ning Chen's sword condensed the power of the 3 scrolls, and instantly broke through the blood chi around Ronglu. The sword pierced through his chest. Arg! With a groan, blood spurted out like a waterfall. Ronglu endured the pain in his chest, and sent the person in front of him flying. Retreat! Seeing that the situation was not good, Ronglu did not want to continue fighting. He made a prompt decision, and quickly retreated. The blood-red light scattered and disappeared in a flash. It was so fast that it was impossible to react. The two wanted to chase, but it was too late. They could only watch the heavily injured Ronglu escape. Benefactor, how are your injuries? Jian Bodhi put away the Sua Luo scepter and asked. I'm fine. It's a pity that he escaped. Ning Chen dissipated the power of the phoenix form. Looking at the disappearing bloody light in the sky, regret flashed in his eyes. Not being able to get rid of such a terrifying expert was like letting a tiger return to the mountain, causing endless trouble in the future. The Rong race is good at escaping. I've chased him for 100 years, but he always managed to escape at critical moments. This time, it's all thanks to your help that I was able to injure him to this extent, Jian Bodhi said gratefully. Grandmaster is too courteous. Please come in for a chat. Ning Chen had many questions he wanted to ask. Thank you, almsgiver. Jian Bodhi did not refuse and followed the young man down. Bad guy, are you okay? Seeing Ning Chen walk over, Mingyu ignored the crowd and immediately went forward. Her small face was filled with worry. It's fine. Ning Chen gently smiled and comforted her. When Jian Bodhi saw Mingyu in her regal attire, A strange glint flashed across his eyes. Ning Chen knew that at such a close distance, it would be difficult to hide it from a top expert in the Three Disasters realm. He transmitted his voice. Grandmaster, there are many difficulties here. I hope you can keep it a secret. Don't worry, almsgiver. Jian Bodhi nodded. Your Majesty, it's getting late. It's time to go back and rest, said Yang Hong. I still have some matters to discuss with the Jiming Marquis. Once we're done, I'll go back myself, replied Mingyu. Your Majesty, it's too late. If there's anything, we can discuss it tomorrow in the Grand Xia Zhenghua Hall. Yang Hong didn't want Mingyu to have too much to do with the Jiming Marquis. 10 of the circular blade Imperial Guards came forward. Under Yang Hong's signal, they were about to forcibly bring Mingyu back. Yang Hong, this is the Jiming Marquis residence. You can't be so impudent here. Yang Hong's repeated overstepping had exhausted Ning Chen's little bit of patience. He coldly glanced at the former. The Marquis was infuriated. The dragon guards that Zhang Sun had arranged for the Marquis residence immediately came forward and surrounded the circular blade Imperial Guards. The atmosphere froze for a moment. Mingyu looked at Yang Hong. After a moment she calmly said, Marquis Yang, why don't you take the throne? Her casual words caused the expressions of the Beiming people to change. Yang Hong was startled and immediately knelt. I don't dare. Withdraw, said Mingyu indifferently. Yes. Yang Hong didn't dare to say anything more. He stood up and left. Before he left, he gave Ning Chen a cold, bone-chilling look. The 10 circular blade Imperial Guards also retreated. No one dared to touch the Emperor's bottom line again. A strange light flashed in Ning Chen's eyes. The little girl from back then had truly grown up. She had far surpassed his imagination. In the study, the three of them sat down. Purple Crystal stood behind Mingyu, as quiet as ever. Ning Chen and Jian Bodhi sat across from each other. Lu Ruoxi went forward to serve them tea before leaving. Mingyu was thrown to the side. No one cared about her for the time being. However, she was more familiar with the Marquis residence than anyone else, so she didn't need anyone to care about her. Senior Jian Bodhi, please. Ning Chen poured the tea and pushed it over. He very naturally changed the way he addressed Jian Bodhi. Mingyu poured herself a cup of tea. She had just taken a sip when she heard Jian Bodhi call her senior. She almost spat it out. She wanted to laugh, but she didn't dare. This person's face was truly unparalleled. They had only known each other for a short while, but he had already changed the way he addressed her. Benefactor, this poor monk can do it himself, Jian Bodhi replied, not minding the change in address. Hey, you're a guest. How can I let senior do it himself? Ning Chen chuckled. Heh. Jian Bodhi's eyes flashed with a smile. How could he not see that the young man in front of him was trying to rope him in? However, it was normal for people to be kind and scheming. If Benefactor has any questions, please feel free to ask, Jian Bodhi said. Senior can just call me Ning Chen. Calling me Benefactor is too polite, Ning Chen said with a smile. Ning Chen, what a good name. Jian Bodhi nodded with a smile on his calm face. Senior praises me too much. Ning Chen smiled. He could see that the person in front of him wasn't as hypocritical as the fake Buddhas from Dewey Temple. Respect grew in his heart. After all, not everyone could cause a disaster and not slack off for 100 years. The Bodhi in front of him still looked young, but the hardships in his eyes revealed his true age. His hair was casually tied behind his back, and his clothes were simple. They weren't Buddhist robes, but the most ordinary of clothes. No matter how one looked at him, he didn't look like a Buddhist. If one had to describe him, he was more like a scholar with a peaceful temperament. His bearing of caring for the world was admirable. Such a person truly deserved to be called Bodhi. What, this poor monk doesn't look like a monk? Jian Bodhi saw through Ning Chen's thoughts. You really don't? Ning Chen nodded. Although he didn't look like one, he was more like a Buddha than those Buddhas. Bodhi isn't like a Buddha, and knowing destiny isn't like a feudal lord. His original heart hasn't changed. What difference does it make whether you look like one or not? Jian Bodhi smiled. Many thanks for senior's teachings. Ning Chen sincerely thanked him. Bodhi's words had a hidden meaning. As expected, Jian Bodhi had seen through his thoughts. Senior, are you from the homeland of Western Buddhism? Asked Ning Chen. Yes. Jian Bodhi nodded. What about that Rong Lu? Asked Ningchen. That's true. Jian Bodhi nodded. Just what kind of place is the homeland of Western Buddhism? Asked Ningchen gravely. Would Senior and Wild encounter any danger while searching for the Void Scroll? He really couldn't be at ease. It's mainly about cultivating Buddhism. 100 schools of thought contend with each other, said Jian Bodhi. How many experts like Rong Lu are there in the homeland of West Buddha? Ningchen asked the question he was most concerned about. Rong Lu is the king of the Rong tribe. Although he can't be considered the strongest expert in the homeland of Western Buddhism, he's still a rare expert. I haven't returned for nearly 100 years, so I'm not too sure just how many experts like him there are in the homeland of Western Buddhism, explained Jian Bodhi. Ningchen frowned slightly. From Senior Jian Bodhi's words, he could tell a bit about the situation in the homeland of Western Buddhism. Simply put, although there weren't many experts like Rong Lu, there wasn't a lack of them either. This really wasn't good news. The appearance of the Void Scroll would definitely cause many experts to fight over it. Senior and Wild's safety was something he was worried about. Forgive me for speaking bluntly, but little friend Ning Chun has killed countless people. This time, you've blocked a tribulation for someone else. Once the 3 calamities descend, it'll be a calamity you won't be able to pass, warned Jian Bodhi. Blocking a tribulation for someone else wasn't so simple. The heavenly tribulation would increase according to the person's cultivation base. For this young man to be able to break through a heavenly tribulation that far surpassed the 3 calamities, with his 4th Xiantian cultivation base, wasn't something an ordinary person could do. But karma was a cycle. Today's cause would eventually bear fruit. Junior will remember Senior Jian Bodhi's warning. However, when Junior was still weak, there was a Senior who helped block the heaven's punishment. Today, Junior is only doing what I should do, said Ningchen calmly. Inheritance. Jian Bodhi glanced at the little girl in front of Amethyst and nodded in understanding. When I came here, I fought with a black-robed, white-haired demon cultivator in the West. Judging from his attire, he should be a noble of the Grand Xia. Does little friend Ningchen know his origins? Jian Bodhi continued. With a crash, the teacup toppled over. Ningchen, who was always calm, lost his composure and accidentally knocked over the teacup, spilling tea all over the table. Outside the room, Lu Ruashi heard the commotion and hurried in. She picked up the spilled cup and wiped the table clean. Senior, please forgive me. Junior has lost his composure, said Ningchen apologetically. Lu Ruashi's eyes flashed with worry, but she didn't ask anything and quietly withdrew. The person Senior met was once the emperor of the Grand Xia, explained Ningchen. He could help Violet Crystal cross the heavenly tribulation, but he couldn't help Ze cross the demonic tribulation. If he couldn't overcome the Eternal Night cult, Ze would probably never be able to return. Mingyue, come here for a moment. Ningchen waved his hand as a gentle smile appeared on the corners of his mouth. Bad guy. Mingyu walked over and stood in front of him. Ningchen glanced at Bodhi, who was right in front of him, and said seriously, Senior, this junior has long heard that the Wisdom King of Buddhism has all kinds of appearances, regardless of gender. I wonder if Senior can bestow upon me a technique to help me conceal the aura on Mingyu's body? Although he could teach Mingyu the Rui technique, and with Violet Crystal Xiantian True Qi concealing her aura, they should be able to deceive the world. However, there might be a better way, so he naturally had to give it a try. Jian Bodhi looked at the little girl in front of him and nodded. If this can reduce the world's disputes, Jian Bodhi is duty-bound. Chapter 343. Eternal Night God Sect Dark Abyss. Beneath the giant image of a god and devil, a powerful aura shook. Stone coffins began to shake. Ever since the Eternal Night religion master had left seclusion, he had finally made a move. The stone coffins opened, and the last 3 people walked out. 2 men and 1 woman, their ancient robes fluttering in the wind. With a single step, they vanished from the abyss. Religion master. Within the 3rd shrine, 3 people knelt down and bowed. In front of the throne, a heroic figure stood there. He looked at the 3 people below, and a strange light flashed in his eyes. Even you three have come out. Religion Master, His Majesty is very dissatisfied with your progress. He specifically asked the three of us to leave seclusion to help you. A purple-clothed youth to the right of the three coldly said. Li Cheng, don't be rude to the Religion Master, the woman on the left reprimanded. There's no need to quarrel. Religion Master, His Majesty is indeed dissatisfied with your progress. He hopes Religion Master can speed things up. The leader of the three, a black-clothed man, calmly said. The Eternal Knight Religion Master narrowed his eyes and lightly said, By Jiang, I know what to do. He hasn't descended yet, so he has no right to tell me what to do. Father. At this time, Luofei heard the commotion and rushed over. When she saw the three people in the hall, her expression froze. The king had 3 martial crowns. Sec daughter, I trust you've been well since we last met. Bai Jiang stood up. Luofei's eyes turned cold. She ignored him and looked at the woman on the left. She softly said, Chuli, congratulations on leaving seclusion. Seeing Luofei, a warm light flashed in Chuli's eyes. She nodded. Many thanks. Bai Jiang, Chuli Li Cheng, the three of you have just left seclusion. You still need time to recover your true essence. Withdraw for now, said the Eternal Knight Religion Master. Subordinate will take his leave. Bai Jiang didn't say anything else. He cupped his fists and left. Chu Li and Li Cheng also retreated. Now, only the Eternal Knight Religion Master and Luofei were left in the massive shrine. Father, have you really decided? Luofei asked seriously. Even the last 3 martial crowns had come out. It could be seen that terrifying existence wasn't too far away from descending upon the divine great land. The Eternal Knight Hierarch walked down from his throne and looked at the divine land through the temple. He nodded slightly. Jiaozhu. Chuli returned and saluted respectfully. Chuli, didn't I say that you don't need to bow when there are no outsiders? The Eternal Knight Hierarch said with a smile. Chuli gently smiled. He looked at Luofei beside him and said in a soft voice, Noble daughter, Chuli is happy that you have found your own home. After saying that, Chuli shifted his gaze to the man beside him and said seriously, Sect Master, since the 7 extinction physique has been found, it's time to sacrifice it. If we delay any longer, I'm afraid the Lord will be angry. I know what I'm doing. Don't worry, Chuli, the Eternal Knight Hierarch said calmly. Luofei's eyes flashed with a touch of worry. Could this matter really not be delayed any longer? In the imperial city of the Xia dynasty, in the residence of the Marquis of Jiming, the light of Sulua shone brightly. Rings of Buddha's light shone on Mingyu's body, covering the feminine aura of a woman. All forms are illusions. If you see that all forms are not forms, then you will see Tathagata. Jian Bodhi's fingers twirled as he chanted an incantation. His body shone with a brilliant light, and his black hair danced in the wind. He was as brilliant as a saint. Ningchen really wasn't interested in Buddhism. However, he truly admired Jian Bodhi's bearing. Such a person was not the slightest bit inferior to the sages of ancient times. He was worthy of respect. Not long after, Jian Bodhi withdrew his hand. The golden leaves on the Suola staff stopped swaying. The feminine aura around Mingyu was also completely restrained. Mingyu, thank you, Senior Jian Bodhi. Ningchen patted the little girl's head. Thank you, Senior. Mingyu obediently bowed to a junior. Jian Bodhi gently smiled. Since you and I are fated to meet, I can't call you Senior for nothing. After saying that, Jian Bodhi broke off a leaf from the Suola staff and handed it over. He calmly said, The Suola tree is the Buddha's Tao-confirming tree. It has the ability to seek good fortune and avoid evil. This tree can help your Majesty avoid evil for the rest of your life. Mingyu reached out to receive the golden Suola tree leaf. Her eyes curved and she couldn't hide her smile. She didn't hold back at all. Bad people had taught her that good things had to be taken. All right, you've taken your things. There are still many things to do tomorrow, so go back and rest. Ningchen smiled. Mingyu obediently nodded and left with Amethyst. Senior, it's getting late. How about you rest in the Marquis mansion for the night, and then continue on your journey tomorrow? Ningchen suggested. Jian Bodhi thought for a moment and nodded. Then I'll have to trouble you. Just as Ningchen and Jian Bodhi stood up, a beautiful figure flew over. Moonlight sprinkled down, illuminating the world. With a bang, Two palms collided. Wild waves roared, causing the entire study to shake. Luofei, it's you. Ning Chun withdrew his hand. Knowledge, Marquis, if you want to save Xia Xinyu, tomorrow is your last chance, said Luofei. Ning Chun's eyes shook and his thoughts raced. He didn't know what this woman's intentions were. If you're afraid, you don't have to come. Luofei waved her hand and threw down a golden scroll. Her figure flickered as she left. Ning Chun picked up the golden scroll. After he finished reading it, his expression changed. This was a map of the Eternal Night God Sect's mechanisms. It marked out the various places the various experts were guarding. However, there were three names that really caught his attention. By River, Chuli, and Li City. They were unfamiliar names and unfamiliar titles. Luofei had specifically marked out the three martial crowns to avoid. Does little friend Ning Chun want to go? Jian Bodhi asked. Ning Chun nodded. I have to go. Whether or not this was the Eternal Night God Sect's scheme, he had to go. Otherwise, if something happened to Xia Xinyu, he would regret it for the rest of his life. Senior Jian Bodhi, Junior has a presumptuous request. I hope Senior can agree to it, said Ning Chun sincerely. Please speak, Jian Bodhi said calmly. If Junior leaves, the Grand Xia Imperial City will be empty. Senior Jian Bodhi, please stay in the Marquis' mansion for one more day. Junior will be eternally grateful, said Ning Chun. Rest assured, little friend Ning Chun. Jian Bodhi will not disappoint you, Jian Bodhi replied. Many thanks. Ning Chun bowed seriously. He then glanced at the beautiful figure outside the room and said, Ruoshi, arrange a quiet guest room for Senior to rest in. Yes. Lu Ruoshi responded, stepped forward, and respectfully said, Please. Thank you for your trouble. Jian Bodhi bowed. After the two left, Ning Chun stood in the study. After thinking for a moment, he picked up the mahogany box on the table and walked out of the room. Luofei had marked out all the guards on the golden scroll. The only one she hadn't marked was the Third Divine Temple's Eternal Night God Sect's leader. Her meaning was obvious. Tomorrow, the Eternal Night God Sect's leader wouldn't be a threat. He and Luofei hadn't known each other for long, and his impression of her was limited to the few times they met at the Hawu Palace. He didn't know her well, and now that their positions were different, he didn't trust her. However, Xianyu was in the hands of the Eternal Night God Sect. He had no choice. Even if this was a trap, he had to break through. The Eternal Night cult was still as sacred and transcendent as it was in the past. The three supreme halls of the Eternal Night cult were protected by numerous war generals, elders and attendants. Even during the golden age of Grand Xia, the Eternal Night cult was a behemoth that even Grand Xia had to be wary of. But now, all the hidden cards of the Eternal Night cult were revealed. Their strength was so terrifying that it caused the hearts of people to tremble. In the west of the Grand Xia Empire, as the sun rose from the east, a white figure slowly walked over. The cold wind at the tail of her clothes disappeared in the blink of an eye. Knowing destiny had been rational all his life, but today, he had made the most irrational choice. He had broken into the Eternal Night God Sect alone. In front of the Eternal Night God Sect, the white robe flashed by. The protective array didn't react. Only in the Third Divine Temple, Luofei's eyes narrowed as she sensed the unique aura of the golden scroll. The throne was empty. 2 hours. This was the most time she could buy. In the Eternal Night God Sect, the white robe sped through the protective array with the help of the golden scroll. Her aura was completely concealed, making it difficult for people to detect her. Behind the Third Divine Temple, above the pool of 10,000 demons, a beautiful figure floated above the pool. Her eyes were closed, and her face was filled with pain. At that moment, a white robe rushed over and stopped in front of the pool of 10,000 demons. Xianyu. Ning Chun saw the woman floating in the demonic qi, and his heart trembled. He turned his palm and condensed yuan qi, stretching it out. Human, you're finally here. Suddenly, a noble and dignified voice rang out. At the same time, in the dark abyss, an endless dark aura spread out through the 10,000 demon pool. A pressure that surpassed the heavens and earth surged out, causing the universe to tremble and everything to prostrate. Ning Chun's expression changed drastically. He immediately stretched his hand into the demonic qi, forcibly pulling Xianyu back. In the third divine temple, Luofei sensed the terrifying aura. Her expression also changed. At this moment, the three martial crowns sensed the aura at the same time and rushed towards the pool of 10,000 demons. The pressure rumbled in the air, noble and powerful, surpassing everything. It made people feel small and insignificant. Retreat! Ning Chen suppressed the shock in his heart. Without a second word, he quickly retreated with Xianyu. The demonic qi gathered, and with a single palm strike, the terrifying might shattered the ground. It was as if doomsday had arrived. On the swaying ground, Ning Chen took a step forward. His figure was like an illusion, transforming into a watery light that flashed past. A trace of demonic qi brushed past him, and with a bang, blood splattered everywhere. Human, cherish your final moments. After that palm strike, the demonic qi dispersed, leaving behind a final warning. In the blink of an eye, the world returned to normal. Ning Chen was injured by the demonic qi, but he didn't dare to stay. He tore off his robe and tied Xianyu to his back. His silhouette flickered as he sped away. Knowledge Marquis, barging into the Eternal Night God sect. I have to say, you're truly audacious. As he spoke, a battle axe chopped down from the sky. It was as heavy as a mountain. Ning Chen leaned to the side, dodging the battle axe. His figure flickered, and he continued forward. Right at this moment, another azure spear shadow descended with the power to shatter the heavens. With a loud bang, it caused the 10 palaces to collapse. Knowledge Marquis, you won't be able to escape. A woman in beautiful armor appeared, blocking his path. I really didn't expect to encounter the opponent I wanted to eliminate the most right after coming out of seclusion. How delightful. Bai Jiang walked out without any weapons. He was the one with the most terrifying aura of the three. Seeing the three of them, Ning Chen's heart sank. Without a doubt, these were the three peak experts of the Eternal Night God sect that Luofei had repeatedly warned him to avoid. Chapter 344. Three martial crowns blocked the way, their terrifying auras surging like mountains pressing down, shaking the heavens and earth. The three sides were blocked, unable to advance or retreat. Ning Chen was between the three of them, and the situation was extremely critical. The three half-step three disasters had all touched upon the barrier of the three disasters. Especially Bian Jiang. He had almost taken the final half-step. Once his cultivation recovered, he would be able to reach the peak of martial arts. The title of martial crowns did not only refer to their powerful cultivation, but also their terrifying combat strength that allowed them to surpass realms. The most dangerous three martial crowns were blocking the way. Luofei did not have much time left. Knowing destiny was stuck in a quagmire and could not break out. Once the Eternal Night Hierarch returned, there would be no more chances. Xia Xinyu was still unconscious. Ning Chen looked at the three people in front and behind him. He waved his right hand, and the blue sparrow appeared in his hand. Sword and axe clashed, and the aftermath shook the world. Before it could stop, a blue spear light came from the left, and the sound of it breaking through the air shook the world. Ning Chen's figure flashed and dodged the spear. At the place where the water light condensed, a frightening palm energy attacked from behind. Wherever it passed, the void would distort violently. The remembrance saber came out, and Ning Chen swung it. The saber broke the palm, and the shockwaves forced people back. These three powerful people were not inferior to the former number 1 divine general, and were even stronger. It was not easy to deal with one of them, and now that they were working together, even gods would be frightened. In the number 1 shrine of Eternal Night, the white-haired demonic cultivator walked out and looked at the battle in the distance. His dark eyes were like an abyss, and no one could see the slightest ripple. Outside the myriad demon pool, the battle was becoming more and more intense. Swords and sabers crisscrossed, spears and axes clashed, and palms were vast. The intertwining lights affected the low-pressure clouds, and under the morning sun, the colors of life and death were drawn. In the third shrine, Luofei looked at the hourglass that was flowing faster and faster, and her heart sank. There was not much time left. Run, there's no time. Let's escape from the divine religion first. In the battle, Luofei's voice sounded in Ning Chen's ears. His eyes turned cold, and a bloody light surrounded his body. The cry of a phoenix soared into the sky, and phoenix blood condensed into a form that immediately fused into his body. A waterfall of blood mist collapsed, and his power multiplied. Heaven and earth chime, life and death defying fate. The sword and saber split the heavens and the earth, and the two swept out to open a path of life. The two weapons intertwined and turned into endless saber light and sword shadows that crisscrossed through the heavens and the earth. In an instant, the heavens and the earth collapsed, and the violent sand waves covered the sky and the sun. Li Cheng bore the brunt of this attack, and was forced back several steps. The corners of his mouth were dyed red. At this moment, Sui forcefully endured a palm strike, and rushed out from the three people who had revealed an opening. She quickly fled into the distance. "Chase!" Bai Jiang shouted in a deep voice, and quickly chased after him. Chu Li and Li Qing followed closely behind. Today, they were determined to cut off Jiming's path of survival. After the four of them left, the endless ruins in the third divine palace of Evernight trembled. An extraordinarily handsome figure walked out of the sealed space. The moment he appeared, all the runes shattered and disappeared. "Luofei, my good daughter, you've surprised your father again." The Eternal Night Religion Master's eyes narrowed as he calmly said, "Father, I'm sorry." Luofei knelt down and begged for forgiveness. "For Xia Xinyu, you schemed against your own father. How do you think I should punish you?" asked the Eternal Night sect leader coldly. "Daughter is willing to bear any punishment," Luofei softly replied. 100 miles away from the divine palace, Sui reformed and took 2 steps forward. "Jiming Marquis, where do you think you're going?" Bai Jiang appeared, and condensed his origin energy with a flip of his palm. A powerful palm energy surged out, splitting open the wilderness. After the palm energy, 2 figures rushed past, so fast that no one could blink. With danger approaching from behind, Ning Chun was worried about Xinyu's safety, so he had no choice but to turn around and block. With a wave of his sword, the palm energy scattered. But during this short pause, Chu Li and Li Cheng had already caught up. Spear light and axe light slashed down, shocking the heavens. With a loud bang, dust filled the air. Ning Chen's feet sank 3 inches into the ground as he blocked 2 weapons with his saber. Blood seeped out from between his fingers and dyed the blade red. Blue Sparrow slashed down at Li Cheng, but Chu Li's spear light spun around and pierced through Jiming's heart meridian. The 3 martial crowns were on a completely different level from their previous opponents. Their cultivation was powerful, and their combat strength was astonishing. Ning Chun leaned to the side, and the spear light brushed past his chest. He turned his saber around, and an ear-piercing sound rang out. Killing light splashed everywhere, bringing with it traces of blood. The bloody mist around Xiao Chen's body became increasingly obvious. The repulsive force caused the phoenix form to enter Xiao Chen's body for a limited amount of time. The plain-clothed figure in the battle was filled with awe-inspiring fighting spirits. Despite facing the most difficult situation, she did not reveal any fear. "It's rumored that Jiming is good at fighting. Seeing it today, it's just so." Li Cheng waved his axe. The power of breaking the heavens was unparalleled. Wherever the axe fell, the earth collapsed. It was a shocking scene. Ning Chen didn't respond. His sword was like 1,000 caddies, meeting the heaven-breaking axe head-on. The rumbling sound of the collision reverberated between heaven and earth. The vigorous martial spirits dazzled people's minds. The blue spear light in Chu Li's hand was swift and fierce. It lacked the feminine gentleness of a woman, and gained a ruthless killing intent. Every move was soul-stirring and life-threatening. Nian Qing danced like lightning, her light saber fighting the sharp spear light. The exchange of blows was so quick that no one dared to be careless for even a moment. The sharpness of the saber and sword was eye-catching under the light of dawn. Bian Jiang saw the opportunity and struck out with fast yuan. Ning Chen sensed it, and his sword changed direction. He knocked away the axe and used his sword to block. With a pung, he was forced back a few steps. Fresh blood flowed down his sword and dripped onto the ground. "Jiming Marquis, bringing a heavily injured person. You won't be able to escape even if you have wings," Bian Jiang said coldly. "I'm already sick of hearing those words." Ning Chen laughed coldly. He tore off a piece of cloth and wrapped the green sparrow sword around his hand. His body flashed, and he continued toward the east. Bianjiang, Chuli, and Li Cheng swiftly chased up. The sharpness of the encirclement did not stop at all. Each move was faster than the last, and each move was like a path to hell. The saber and sword moved back and forth. The white cloth wrapped around his hand was stained with fresh blood. A cold killing light flashed by his ears. Strands of black hair floated down as the path to hell opened up. In front of us is Grand Xia territory. Stop him! Bianjiang shouted coldly. Victorious Return's camp was not too far away, and he could not allow the two of them to meet up. Hurricane 3 slashes. Li Cheng waved the axe in his hand, and a gale howled. 3 slashes shook the heavens. Ning Chen's expression turned cold. He waved his sword to block the axe, and his figure blurred as he dodged another killing move. However, the azure spear light that chased after him broke through his illusions. It was vicious and sharp, following him like a shadow. Heavenly scroll, unparalleled under the heavens. Nianqing waved her sword, and the pure white saber shone brightly. Rays of saber light shot out, flowing endlessly. Chuli coldly harumphed. His spinning spear broke through the saber light, clashing endlessly. In an instant, all of the light dissipated. The blazing battle shook everyone's hearts. The unshakable 3 martial crowns displayed their most shocking combat strength. Each one of them was so strong that it made others feel fear. The title of martial crown was not exaggerated at all. Grand Xia's territory was not far away, and Victorious Return's camp was getting closer and closer. However, the sharpness of the saber light became even more vicious, and it was difficult to find the path ahead. Xianyu's coma restricted Ning Chen's speed, making the path of escape even more difficult. However, once he carried this burden, he would never be able to let it go. Looking at the courageous figure in front of him, Chuli felt respect in his heart. However, the azure spear in his hand became even colder. Every move sealed off all paths of retreat. Knowing destiny, Marquis, hand over your life, Li Cheng hollered. His axe was like a mountain collapsing as it slashed down from the sky. Ning Chen waved his saber to block Chuli's spear. The azure sparrow condensed into frost, and with a loud bang, the white cloth shattered, and the Emperor's sword flew out. The Emperor's sword that flew out cried out continuously, symbolizing the helplessness of the demonic cultivator. In this life, if he could not let go of the burden on his back, it would be difficult for him to spread his wings and soar. Ning Chen, you're in a difficult situation. Just at this critical moment, a cold voice rang out. It was so familiar, as if it had been many years, but also as if it had just happened yesterday. On his back, the unconscious Xia Xianyu opened her eyes. She raised her hand and grabbed the flying great azure sparrow sword. In the next moment, the sword was like a flash of azure light, directly piercing into Li Cheng's heart. The piercing sound of the sword piercing through the organs made people shiver. In just an instant, the azure sparrow sword had completely pierced through his body. The sudden change shocked everyone present. The unbelievable truth was driving them crazy. Ugh! Li Cheng spat out a mouthful of blood. His eyes flashed with intense unwillingness. Why did it turn out like this? Li Cheng, Bai Jiang and Chuli were shocked, but they reacted in an instant. Their anger soared to the heavens. Ning Chen also recovered from his shock. He sent Li Cheng flying with a palm strike. Immediately after, he slashed open 100 zhang of land with his saber and retreated quickly. The two of them blocked the saber light and quickly arrived in front of Li Cheng. What they saw was his pierced heart and the unceasing flow of blood. Help! Help me! Help! Help! The last words that he could not finish in time carried the final hatred of his life. Li Cheng's eyes were filled with regret. Just like that, the martial crown of a generation disappeared. Chase! Bai Jiang and Chuli could not suppress their anger and quickly gave chase. However, after chasing for 100 li, they could no longer see that white figure. At the western border of the Grand Xia, beside a flowing river, Ning Chen stopped and leaned the girl on his back against a tree beside the river. His eyes flashed and he said in disbelief, Fan Lingyue? Blue light gathered, and an illusory figure appeared beside Xianyu. Even after so many years, he still could not forget the person he was most familiar with in this life. The beautiful girl had a gentle appearance. Her blue dress fluttered gently in the wind. Without a doubt, she was the Northern Ming military advisor, who had once forced the Grand Xia into a desperate situation. Long time no see. As expected, you still can't let go of the word love, Fan Lingyue said with a faint smile. When did you wake up? Ning Chen suppressed the shock in his heart and asked. When that monster from the Eternal Night cult appeared, Fan Lingyue said calmly. Do you know what that is? An old monster at the perfection stage of the Three Disasters realm? Ning Chen narrowed his eyes and asked in a low voice. That kind of aura was so powerful that it made one despair. It did not seem like something a human should possess. Even when he was in the tomb of the ancient sages, he did not feel such a terrifying pressure. Fan Lingyue shook her head and said softly. Perhaps it is even more terrifying than what we imagined. Shouldn't the limit of a mortal's martial path be the perfection stage of the Three Disasters realm? Ning Chen's heart sank. The path of the martial path was extremely difficult. An expert at the perfection stage of the Three Disasters realm was hard to come by even in 1,000 years. A person's lifespan was ultimately limited. A higher realm had never appeared before, and it was impossible for a mortal to reach it. Chapter 345. It's true that the limit of mortals is the Three Disasters realm. However, it's not certain that non-human beings don't exist in this world. That person from the Eternal Night cult might have already surpassed the limits of mortals. I once used the Chaos Scroll to see a few broken images from the Eternal Night scripture. After 5 years, I finally understood some things. At this point, Fan Lingyue paused for a moment and glanced in the direction of the Eternal Night cult. Her eyes flashed as she said, I used to think that there was an end to the world. Later, I realized that I was a frog in a well. How could there be an end to the world? Hearing these words, Ning Chen couldn't hide the shock in his heart. He naturally knew that there shouldn't be an end to the world. However, there was indeed an end to the world. After seeing it with his own eyes, he had no choice but to believe it. There's another name in the Divine Continent that very few people know. That's the Eastern Divine Continent. I vaguely saw an era when the 5 regions coexisted in the Eternal Night scripture. If I'm not wrong, the Divine Continent should have been forcefully separated from the other 4 regions. That's why there's an end to the world. His words were as calm as water, without too many ripples, but it was the most shocking conjecture. Fan Lingyue had already guessed what had happened several tens of thousands of years ago, by relying on a few incomplete diagrams and a few clues. The imperfection of the world should be related to the Eternal Night cult. I only have a soul left, so I can't hold on for long. I'll leave the rest to you. Remember what I said before. If the Eternal Night cult causes trouble, and no one can stop it, you must find a way to put the Chaos Scroll into the Eternal Night scripture. After saying these words, the beautiful blue figure scattered and turned into specks of starlight that flew into the Chaos Scroll. A military advisor of a generation, once the most powerful person in the world, fell into a deep sleep again. Ning Chen was silent. He gently helped Xine Yu up and continued to walk forward. Although he was tired, he still tried his best to prop himself up. Gradually, drops of rain fell from the sky, drenching his white clothes. Victories and defeats in life, wills and death, drifting in the wind and rain, as if asking, was it worth it? Was it worth it? The questions lingered in his ears, but they couldn't stop him from moving forward. The wind did not know, nor did the rain. If Zhang Sun had acted in the same way, Xi Ming might have died at the hands of Emperor Xia. If Qing Ning had also asked whether it was worth it when she blocked the assassin for them, Ning Chen might not have existed in the world. There was also Cheto and Dean Tiansong, who had risked their lives to save his. Did they ever ask if it was worth it? In this world, if everyone had to ask if it was worth it or not, then how pitiful, sad, and hateful would that be? Fan Lingyue was the person who understood Ning Chen the most in this world. That was why he entrusted his dying wish to Ning Chen. The military advisor of Northern Ming had looked down on the people of the world all his life. After his death, he chose to use his remnant soul to shoulder the safety of the people of the world. The wise man was lonely, and it was lonely at the top. Fortunately, in this life, there was someone who walked the same path. In the Jiming Marquis manor, Ning Chun returned, bringing back Xan Yu who had been missing for a long time. When Zhang Sun received the news, he immediately came to the Marquis manor. In the room, Zhang Sun sat before the bed, caressing the face of the woman on the bed as tears flowed from his eyes. Although Zi and Xan Yu weren't his children, he had raised them for over 20 years, and they were no different from his own children. Don't worry, Your Highness. The princess is fine. Ning Chun looked at Zhang Sun and comforted her. Zhang Sun wiped away the tears in her eyes and gently nodded. Xan Yu will rest here for now. Once her body is better, send her back to the princess residence. Zhang Sun instructed. And Ning Chun nodded. Zhang Sun stayed for over an hour before returning to the palace accompanied by Qing Ning. The Eternal Night cult would soon make a move, so the Grand Xia had to make arrangements as soon as possible. Ruoxi, I'll have to trouble you again. Ning Chun looked at Ruoxi and said, It's what I should do. Lu Ruoxi softly replied. Outside the room, the sky gradually darkened. Ning Chun stood in front of the window, silently thinking. Today's trip had brought him many benefits, but even more surprises. Fan Lingyue's words had reminded him that the Eternal Night cult's ultimate goal was likely not just the Eastern Divine Land. If the Divine Land was really forcibly separated from the other 4 regions, then the events that had happened over the past tens of thousands of years would be truly terrifying. He didn't know how terrifying the existence behind the Eternal Night cult was, but he had once felt the power of a perfect 3 disasters in the ancient sage's tomb. That kind of feeling was like facing the entire world, making one unable to raise the thought of resisting. No one knew what had happened over the past tens of thousands of years. It seemed that the entire world only knew that the 3,000 great sects had developed to the era of dynasties in just over 20,000 years. Perhaps only the Eternal Night cult, which had existed throughout the history of the Divine Land, knew the true situation. Ning Chun walked out of the room. At the same time, the door next door creaked open, and Jian Bodhi walked out. The day's agreement had come, and since the disaster hadn't been resolved, Jian Bodhi had to continue on his journey. Senior, you're leaving? Ning Chun asked. The disaster hasn't been resolved, and Jian Bodhi has yet to fulfill his responsibilities. I don't dare to slack off. Jian Bodhi calmly replied. Senior, please take a look at something. Ning Chun waved his hand, and a shadow flew out of the room. A dark green bow appeared. It was neither metal nor stone, but it was simple and heavy, showing that it was extraordinary. The Zhao family's bow. Jian Bodhi's expression was slightly surprised. Senior, have you seen a bow like this before? Ning Chun frowned slightly. This wasn't the first time he had heard of the Zhao family. However, he was very sure that there was no Zhao family in the Divine Land that made bows. I've seen it once. Jian Bodhi nodded and explained. The Zhao clan is an extremely powerful clan in the Central Plains. Even in the Western Buddha homeland, the Zhao clan has influence. The people of the Zhao clan are known for being protective of their own. Even some of the great sects are unwilling to provoke them. Jian Bodhi glanced at the youth in front of him and asked seriously, Little friend, where did you get your bow? A long time ago, a dead friend gave it to me. Ning Chun opened his eyes and made up a lie. Jian Bodhi nodded and didn't ask any more questions. This realm wasn't connected to his realm, so there shouldn't be any problems. If there's nothing else, this monk will take his leave. We'll meet again. Jian Bodhi bid farewell. Senior, thank you for your help in the past 2 days. If you need any help in the future, please don't hesitate to ask, said Ning Chun. Naturally. Jian Bodhi nodded and walked away. The wind blew, and the leaves of the Sua Lua rustled. It was as if Bodhi was meditating, guiding people to do good. Seeing the former leave, Ning Chun waved his hand and returned the broken death bow. His eyes flashed. From Jian Bodhi's words, it wasn't hard to tell that he didn't know much about the Eastern Divine Land. In that case, the fact that one of the other 4 prefectures was missing was also a secret that no one was unaware of. Ning Chun looked at the Eternal Night sect in the east and narrowed his eyes. The more he knew, the more he felt how terrifying this colossus was. What exactly was the Eternal Night cult planning? What kind of existence was that terrifying figure that shocked everyone? Eternal Night sect, dark abyss. Powerful aura surged. Ghost, underworld, Buddha, Tao mortal, and 7 absolutes. 6 essences gathered. At that moment, a figure that had disappeared for a long time fell from the sky. It was a familiar face. It was the once stunning God's son. The God's son who had disappeared after stepping into the Khanate realm reappeared today. He was already unconscious and had completely lost consciousness. The next moment, God's son's body turned into specks of stars and dissipated. Divine source flew out. Suddenly, the 7 essences gathered, and heaven and earth trembled violently. In a strange space, an extremely powerful aura appeared. It surpassed heaven and earth, and looked down on all living things. After countless years, it was finally about to descend on the divine land again. The huge image of the god and demon rumbled. The 7 essences entered it, and entered a strange space. A strange body slowly took shape, and it was extremely shocking. Creation. A domain that even the ancient sages at the peak of 3 disasters couldn't touch. In this illusory space, it was happening bit by bit, clear and unquestionable. In the divine land, the crescent moon was tinged with a trace of blood. Just like 5 years ago, when Mars guarded the heart, the red brilliance was shocking. Ordinary people couldn't see much abnormality, but the warriors on the heavens reach land all noticed this strange situation. They all looked up at the sky, their faces full of shock. In the wilderness, Jian Bodhi looked at the strange phenomenon in the sky and sighed softly. It seemed that a great disaster was about to befall the world again. Marquis, Lu Ruashi said worriedly in the backyard of the Marquis' mansion, looking at the Marquis' changing expression. Daylily and Ningxi also came out. Looking at the crescent moon in the sky, they had a bad premonition. This was no longer a celestial phenomenon. For thousands of years, such a celestial phenomenon had never appeared. A bloody moon was too incredible. The sky is changing. Ningchen sighed deeply. An unknown enemy was the most terrifying. This time, the power of the great Xia alone couldn't stop it. In the east wing, Amethyst looked at the sky. While she was thinking, a calm voice sounded. Amethyst, bring Mingwei here. Yes, Amethyst replied. Outside the main hall of the barbarian palace, the barbarian king walked down from his throne and stared at the blood moon in the sky. His dignified face was solemn at this moment. It seemed that the teacher's words had come true. Men, the barbarian king said. Present. A soldier came and knelt down. Send a letter to the great Xia imperial palace. Say that this king wants to have a talk, the barbarian king said in a deep voice. Yes. In the 4 extremes, Meng Xuanji, Luan Fengchen, Jiang Hua, and the other young geniuses looked at the sky with serious expressions. What was going on? Something happened in the divine prefecture. Meng Xuanji's heart was heavy. The sky of the 4 extremes was different from the divine prefecture. At the top of the sky, there was an unbreakable canopy. According to Ning Chen's speculation, the sun and moon of the 4 extremes should be a reflection from the divine prefecture, which was why it was so unreal. Whether it was real or not, the blood moon in front of her was too abnormal. She had to go to the divine prefecture as soon as possible to see what was going on. In the easternmost part of the divine prefecture, when the blood moon's splendor sprinkled down, the sky was filled with dark clouds and thunder. Below, a calm figure finally walked out of the obstacles in his heart. His sword cultivation had improved, and his martial realm had entered the 3 disasters. In the next moment, the clear sword was drawn, and the world was filled with brilliance. Chapter 346. In the Tiansong Academy, the purifying light suddenly descended. A beautiful figure in white stood in the light, her black hair dancing in the wind. She had ascended to the 4th tribulation. The headmaster walked out of the wooden house and looked at the blood moon in the sky. His old eyes were full of fatigue. The prophecy had finally appeared. Mars guarded the heart, and the mortal world was dark for 100 years. The everlasting night's prophecy from 5 years ago showed signs again today. The unavoidable calamity would reappear if it was not stopped. In the Chizhou Mountains, the earth trembled. The Taotai, who had been sleeping for countless years, was also frightened by the changes in the sky and trembled uncontrollably. In the northern Ming imperial court, in the northwest territory of the estranged mountain, the nine-headed snakelet cried at the moon and lay on the ground, not daring to resist. In the four extremes, under the half-moon cliff, the Yazi howled. The legendary son of the dragon gave up his dignity in the face of this terrifying aura and bowed down. In the Phoenix Perch Mountain, above the parasol tree, the two phoenixes cried at the moon. The phoenixes were proud all their lives. In the face of this supreme pressure, although they were afraid, they were unwilling to lower their heads. The divine beasts were the first to sense the aura of the impending calamity. The power that surpassed everything was beyond the reach of human beings. It made all living beings feel desperate. 1,000 years, it's too long. In the Taoya's stomach, Jiang Wangji looked at the sky through the obstacles. He and the headmaster had waited for 1,000 years, worried that this calamity would come. They hoped that the juniors in the future could still stop it in time. In the divine prefecture, the originally peaceful night was no longer peaceful because of the appearance of the blood moon. At this moment, demonic chi soared into the sky from the eternal night sect. In front of the first divine palace, a white-haired figure in a black robe walked out. Facing the sky full of lightning, he stepped into the sky. "Congratulations, Demon King!" Seeing the Demon King ascending to the three calamities, the generals in the eternal night knelt down and saluted. Their momentum shook the sky and spread hundreds of miles away. In front of the dark abyss, Bai Jiang looked at the figure in the sky. His eyes flashed. He had never liked this foreign Demon King. Those who were not of his race had to have different intentions. An outsider made him feel uneasy. In the third divine palace, the hierarch of the Eternal Night sect walked out of the main hall. He looked at the white-haired young man in the sky and nodded slightly. This young man's talent was indeed not inferior to anyone else. With such an outstanding royal bloodline, it was reasonable that the great Xia dynasty had been prosperous for 1,000 years. Inheritance was always the most important foundation of heritage. In the Marquis' mansion, Ning Chun felt the changes in the phoenix blood in his body. He looked towards the distant east and sighed heavily in his heart. Such an outcome truly made one feel helpless. Right at this moment, Bright Moon, who wore a bright yellow dragon robe, walked over from afar. Violet Crystal accompanied her, and 10 round-blade imperial guards followed closely behind her. "Wait here." Mingyu stopped in front of the rear courtyard and ordered. "Yes." The 10 circular blade imperial guards accepted the order and replied respectfully. What exactly happened? Mingyu walked forward, her delicate little face full of worry. Ning Chen came back to his senses and looked at the little girl, who had grown up in front of him. He said softly, "The Eternal Night cult has an existence who is far more powerful than the 3 disasters. The Xia dynasty alone cannot stop it. Mingyue, you have grown up. This time, you have to make your own decision." If he guessed correctly, the barbarian king should be arriving soon. In the divine land, other than the great Xia, the northern Ming dynasty and the barbarian dynasty were the 2 strongest dynasties. If the 3 dynasties joined forces, they might have a chance to stop the barbarian king. If such a terrifying existence came to the world, there would be no way to save the situation. 3 days later, in the Zhenhua palace of the great Xia, the barbarian king, Zhang Sun, and Mingyue, the 3 most powerful people of the current generation, were discussing the matter of an alliance. The Eternal Night cult now had 3 disasters, the hierarch of the Eternal Night and the demon monarch. There was also Bai Jiang, who could enter the 3 disasters after recovering his true yuan. Together with Chu Li, who was also a martial champion, the Eternal Night cult was unprecedentedly powerful. If the 3 dynasties did not join forces, after the Xia dynasty was destroyed, the barbarian king and the northern Ming dynasty would be next. The comparison on the surface was already like this. However, what worried Ning Chen the most was the existence behind the Eternal Night cult. This was the real disaster. When absolute power surpassed the level of intelligence and human martial arts, it was really hard to save the world. While the 3 were discussing, Ning Chen came from the Desolation City. He came to ask for forgiveness and also to ask Mubai to help. After the senior left, the only person in the divine land who could fight against the hierarch of the eternal night was Mubai. Ningchen walked to the sword pool, but found that there was no one in front of it, and there was no sword in the pool. At this moment a calm voice sounded, shaking people's hearts. Tomorrow, in front of the eternal night cult, Master will prove his swordsmanship. This was the most shocking news. Ningchen's face was full of shock. He did not have time to think, and rushed to the west. In the divine land, a white figure flashed and disappeared. The crescent moon gradually rose in the sky. The blood-red color became clearer. Although it was not obvious, the night seemed to have lengthened. When the moon was in the middle of the sky, Ningchen rushed to the camp of the Marquis of Victory Return, and prepared to mobilize the army in advance. No matter who won this battle, it would be difficult for the two to escape unscathed. As long as the hierarch of the eternal night was injured, and could not return to his peak state, the pressure of the Xia dynasty's westward advance would be reduced by half. Urgent reports were sent out from the Marquis of Victory Return's camp to the other Marquis of the Western Front. This might be a rare opportunity, so they must be ready to send troops at any time. There was too little time to arrange too many things, and no one could change Mubai's mind. The outcome of this battle was hard to predict, but there was no doubt that there would be a decisive difference. The sky gradually brightened. In the distant horizon, a sword light soared into the sky. On the dazzling path of swordsmanship, a white figure appeared. In an instant, 10,000 swords within 1,000 li prostrated themselves, respectfully welcoming the strongest sword in the world. He's here. In the third palace of the Eternal Night cult, the hierarch of the Eternal Night opened his eyes. His figure flashed and disappeared from the throne. The invincible sword of Barren City, a legend among swords. He also wanted to see how powerful this sword was. It was lonely at the top. It was hard to find a confidant, but an opponent was even harder to find. In this world, the strongest people hoped to meet an opponent who could force them to use their full strength. In the sky, the two people looked at each other. At first they were calm, but in the blink of an eye, their battle intent soared. Similarly, the extraordinary battle spirit shone brightly under the morning sun. It was dazzling. It was not something that the master of the four extreme region, who only had strength, but had lost the heart of a warrior, could compete with. Please, please. The two strongest people in the world faced each other head-on. After the word please, life and death were determined. Several figures appeared outside of the battlefield. On the Evernight side, Chu Li and Bai Jiang were supporting the formation. In the first shrine, the demon lord sat on the throne, gazing at the horizon with his deep eyes without the slightest ripple. On the Barren City side, Sword 1 and Sword 2 appeared. Even Jian Luiying, who had been expelled from Barren City, stood silently far away, watching the battle. On the Grand Xia side, the number of experts was severely reduced. No one came forward. At the beginning of the battle, rays of sword light spiraled in the sky. Before they could see clearly, the white figure disappeared, and so did the sword light. The hierarch of the Eternal Night's expression did not change. He flipped his palm and condensed origin energy. True Qi rose around his body. The moment his sword arrived, his palm collided with the sword light, blocking wave after wave. After the sword light, the white figure flashed again. His sword fingers were like a sword, splitting the sky 30,000 zhang. In the collapsing void, a dazzling long gully appeared. The peerless sword cultivation displayed its sharpest edge. The hierarch of the Eternal Night's eyes narrowed. He gathered his vast origin energy, and took a step forward. Black and red battle intent fluttered in the air. He punched out, meeting the world's #1 sword head-on. With a loud bang, a drop of blood floated down from his fist. The sword intent collapsed, rolling up a storm in the sky. Strong, so strong that it made people satisfied. Fast, so fast that it made people respect it. After one move, the two's expressions turned serious. The real battle had begun. With the chaos sword essence in his hand, Mubai's aura changed instantly. It was like the sharpest sword in the world had been unsheathed. Even the surrounding sky and earth were distorted. Eternity. The hierarch of the Eternal Night opened his mouth. Immediately, a divine weapon flew out from the Eternal Night cult and entered his hand. In the next moment, the sword and halberd collided. 100 jang of void collapsed. The light of dawn shone down, but it was sucked in and could not spread out. The extreme martial art caused the expressions of the people outside the battle to change. Martial arts could reach such a level. It was really shocking. Sword style, one sword 1,000 calamities. When the two weapons collided, the 9 styles of heaven testimony appeared in the world. Mubai turned his right hand and waved the chaos sword essence. A crescent-shaped sword chi spread out. It was an ordinary sword, but at this moment, it was like the world's most shocking heavenly calamity. Seeing the appearance of the most powerful sword style, the hierarch of the Eternal Night focused. In an instant, thunder surged. Streaks of angry thunder spread on the Eternity halberd. A powerful pressure spread out in the midst of the thunder, forcing the people watching the battle to retreat 100 jang. An instant of silence followed the collision of the two extremes. Soon after, a calamity that seemed like the sky was collapsing and the earth was caving in. Space after space collapsed and turned into nothingness. Below the two of them, the great sect protecting formation was unable to endure such a frightening aftershock. Numerous cracks continuously spread in all directions. Sword style limitless sword. In the battle, the limitless sword appeared. It was the world's fastest sword. Where the intent was, the sword would follow. It broke through the limits of space and drew a white shadow in the sky. Before everyone's eyes could gather, the sword had already arrived in front of the hierarch of the Eternal Night. Only an opponent like this is worthy of being called an opponent. The hierarch of the Eternal Night's hand grabbed the chaos sword essence. Blood dripped from his hand. In terms of speed, Mubai was number 1 in the world. He had no objections. The halberd swung, and thunder shook the heavens. The instant it fell, Mubai pulled back his sword and retreated, dodging the halberd. Hierarch of the Eternal Night is worthy of being called an expert, said Mubai gravely. While the two strongest people in the world were fighting, 10 miles outside the Confucian School's Dragon Garden, a broken arrow floated above the weapon-forging pool. Ningchen looked at the heaven-pardoning arrow in the pool and frowned. Was it still not done? Lord Marquis, an elder bowed. How much longer? Asked Ningchen. In terms of time, it should be done in 2 days, replied the elder respectfully. Ningchen nodded and didn't say anything else. The Grand Xia had many skilled craftsmen, but they couldn't find a divine craftsman like the Lihua dynasty's craftsmen. They had already wasted quite a bit of time repairing this arrow. Chapter 347. The battle between the two extremes became more and more intense. A sword and a halberd slashed across with heavy and sharp killing light. Neither of them showed any mercy, because any mercy was the greatest disrespect to the opponent in front of them. The Eternal Night hierarch's hands were dyed red. He didn't have any special techniques, nor did he have an undying body. He was just a mortal, but he was undeniably powerful. He was so powerful that he deserved to be called the strongest person in the world. The Sky Wasteland halberd was powerful and domineering. In the hands of the Eternal Night hierarch, it looked even more heroic. The combination of speed and power shook the sword of primal chaos. Mubai's battle intent had already reached the peak of his life. With the sword in his hand, his entire body was like a sword. His sword was like the clouds, and his body was like flowing water. His white clothes transformed into a sword as he pierced through the horizon. Mubai was no longer in sight, but the sharpest sword. In the sky above the Eternal Night hierarch, the sword on the sword appeared again. It was the true peak of the sword, and no one could reach it. It made the innate experts below feel that the path of the sword was so far away. They wanted to pursue the sword on the sword for the rest of their lives. Xian Tian also came. After entering the 3 disasters, his temperament had changed completely. Looking at the sky, his calm eyes unconsciously flashed with brilliance. The battle of wind and cloud attracted experts from all over the world. Rong Lu and Jian Bodhi were in different places, but they were also paying attention to this battle. Such a battle was also rarely seen in 100 years in the homeland of Western Buddha. A battle between experts was always so dazzling no matter when and where. Sword-style formless sword. The battle lasted for an unknown period of time. Mu Bai's body moved, and he used his sword style again. The primal chaos sword essence disappeared, and a series of afterimages that only the two of them could see flashed past. Thousands of sword shadows condensed into one, and then condensed again and again. Seeing this, the Eternal Night Hierarch used his blood essence as a guide, and lightning descended from all directions. With the support of his blood essence, it turned into surging blood lightning. The moment the sword arrived, it advanced instead of retreating. With a cracking sound, a crack appeared on the sky wasteland halberd. It was very light, but it was very clear. The Eternal Night Hierarch frowned slightly, and with a flip of his palm, he sent out a surge of energy. Mu Bai retreated and swung his sword, slashing the palm energy. However, he was also affected by the aftershock, and a trace of blood flowed down from the corner of his mouth. The battle had reached its most critical moment. The blazing sun hung high in the sky, sprinkling down its warm radiance. Since the start of the battle, both sides no longer held back. The injuries that they had suffered were unable to stop the rising fighting spirit. The outstanding fighting spirits that shone in the sky had become the most dazzling scenery in the world. 6 of the 9 forms of heaven testimony had been used, and the 7th form, which had never appeared before, was about to arrive. Before the move was used, the area within a radius of 10,000 feet had already turned into a world of swords. Swords soared into the sky one after another. At this moment, they were no longer under the control of their masters. They formed a huge spiraling cloud of swords in the sky. Tens of thousands of swords circled in the sky. The black cloud of swords covered the sky, making people feel as if it was the end of the world. At this moment, Ningchen had also arrived. His eyes narrowed as he looked at the sword cloud spiraling in the sky. The green sparrow trembled. It was the Emperor's sword of the Xian Empire. At this moment, it also felt the call of the royal bloodline and began to buzz. "Go," Ningchen said calmly. Hearing this, the green sparrow let out a long cry. Then it transformed into a green shooting star that shot into the sky and entered the myriad of swords. The battle of proving the sword had finally reached its final juncture. In the next moment, streaks of sword light flew out from the center of the spiraling cloud of swords. They turned into boundless sword currents that rushed towards the Eternal Night Hierarch. With the Chaos Sword essence as the beginning, it crashed into Tianhuang with a loud boom. After the chaos, tens of thousands of sword light followed. Under everyone's shocked gazes, it flew down from the sky. "Awesome!" the Eternal Night Hierarch shouted. His black hair danced in the wind. His fighting spirit soared into the sky. He waved his halberd and broke through the swords. The clanging sounds of battle resounded through the sky like drums, bells, and gold. Tens of thousands of swords shattered, and the cracks on Tianhuang became more and more obvious. At the final moment, the green sparrow fell. Its cry shook the sky. With a loud clang, it crashed into the cracks on Tianhuang again. The halberd shattered, announcing the regret of this battle. The sword had penetrated an inch into the Eternal Night Hierarch's chest, but it was stopped by a hand. It could not go any further. The familiar sword was thrown down from the sky and landed 10 miles away. "Junior, I'll return your sword to you." The heroic Eternal Night Hierarch was still as free and easy as before. The heroic Eternal Night Hierarch returned the sword without any hesitation. The green sparrow flew down and stabbed into the ground. Ningchen looked at the sword in front of him and put it back into the red wooden box. He calmly waited for the battle to end. Such an expert was indeed worthy of respect. If it weren't for their different standpoints and beliefs, he wouldn't have wanted to be their enemy. When Tianhuang broke, Mu Bai also stopped. He frowned and said calmly, "Why do you keep using the third shrine's smoke cloud divine halberd? I can't take it out now. Stop wasting time. I can still fight." Again, the Eternal Night Hierarch took a step forward. Blood chi surged around his body. His vigorous pressure didn't decrease at all. Mu Bai frowned even more. After a moment, he withdrew his sword and dispersed his sword intent. "There's no need for this battle. I will wait for the day when you take out your weapon." After saying that, Mu Bai turned around and left. This battle wasn't in vain. The Eternal Night Hierarch was worthy of being called the strongest expert in the world. Unfortunately, he still had some regrets. The white-clothed figure in the sky left with regret and loneliness. The legend of the Grand Xia had left, and it was difficult to find an opponent to spar with. The Eternal Night Hierarch was the only one left, but he hadn't been able to retrieve his weapon. The path of proving one's strength was actually so difficult. "Come see me in Desolate City tonight." The last words echoed in Ning Chen's ears. The two swords of Desolate City left. One returned to Sword City, and the other continued on the path of entering the world. 10 miles away from the Eternal Night Hierarch, Ning Chen stood quietly. Since the Green Sparrow had been exposed, there was no need to hide anymore. He drew his bow and aimed at the Eternal Night Hierarch. Snow fell from the sky, and a dazzling silver light shook the surroundings. 10 miles was nothing for the Eternal Night Hierarch, but it was even less for the heaven-pardoning arrow. When he came, he had calculated the distance. It wasn't too far, but it wasn't too close. It was barely enough time to shoot an arrow, and it was also enough to deal the greatest damage. This was a rare opportunity, and it wouldn't come again. He didn't shoot this arrow during the battle just now. This was already the greatest respect Ning Chen could give. Whether it was Mu Bai or the Eternal Night Hierarch, they were both worthy of him waiting until the end of this battle. Looking at the silver light 10 miles away, the Eternal Night Hierarch's expression became serious. A gentleman couldn't shoot an arrow from behind. However, the Jiming Marquis was obviously never a gentleman. It wasn't easy for him to wait until now to shoot this arrow. Of course, even if the Eternal Night Hierarch faced this arrow head-on, he wasn't completely confident. 10 miles away, the ground cracked, showing how amazing this arrow was. Snow and ice filled the sky, as if the sky was falling, surged around Su Yi's body. The arrow, which contained the power of 3 rolls, rushed into the sky before anyone could react. Hierarch Chu Li's expression changed. He wanted to step forward to block it, but it was already too late. The heaven-splitting arrow pierced through the void, leaving behind a long black ravine. The heaven-pardoning arrow, which had been fully charged, had a terrifying might that made one's heart tremble. Even the several 3 disaster powerhouses present were intimidated by the destructive aura of the arrow, their bodies turning cold. Facing this powerful arrow, the Eternal Night Hierarch focused all of his attention. Vast essence was released from his body, and his shocking cultivation erupted, forming a barrier in front of him. The heaven-pardoning arrow broke through the barrier of true essence, and pierced through the Hierarch's body. Blood gushed out like rain. Within the Eternal Night Hierarch, Madame Luofei, who had been punished to reflect on her mistakes, suddenly felt her heart tremble. She rushed out, only to see this shocking scene. The heaven-pardoning arrow shattered. After this arrow, it completely dissipated. In the next moment, the Eternal Night Hierarch fell from the sky, his body soaked in blood. "Father!" Madame Luofei was shocked. She took a step forward and caught him. Her weak aura gradually scattered. "Retreat!" Ning Chen's eyes narrowed. His feet moved, and his figure quickly retreated. Chu Li looked back at the Hierarch, whose aura was gradually weakening. Her eyes were filled with grief and anger. She lost her mind and chased after him alone. "Chu Li!" Mi Jiang was shocked. He wanted to warn her, but it was too late. Above the vast wilderness of the western border, 2 figures flashed one after the other. Chu Li, who had lost her mind, couldn't care about anything else. She only wanted to kill the person in front of her. "Silly woman," Ning Chen sighed. Women were infatuated, but it was also easy for them to lose their judgment. If she followed him like this, she would have no chance to go back. 10 miles away from Marquis Triumphant Return's camp, a majestic figure sensed the two's aura, and quietly waited in front of the camp. When the two arrived, the glorious era saber was unsheathed. With a mighty military aura, the saber slashed forward. "Marquis knowing destiny, give me your life!" Chu Li was furious. She ignored Marquis Triumphant Return's threat, and locked her sharp spear on the knowing destiny body. Every move was ruthless and deadly. "Marquis Triumphant Return, leave this woman to me. If anyone comes to help, please stop them." Ning Chen avoided the spear light in front of him. He clenched his left hand and said solemnly, "Well, be careful." Marquis triumphant return responded and stood aside, guarding against anyone coming to help. At the same time, he cut off the possibility of Chuli escaping. Marquis Wu and Wu Guan had already fought for the second time in a few days. However, the situation was completely different. Chuli lost her mind and was full of killing intent. Although her moves were ruthless, she had lost the changeability of the last time. In addition, she was alone. Facing the knowing destiny state, she completely lost the overwhelming momentum of the last time. Ning Chen stepped on the flowing light. His figure was illusory, and his saber was light. He didn't want to kill, but to trap the enemy. The saber and the spear collided. They were as fast as the wind, and the killing intent overflowed. Chuli couldn't touch the opponent, which made her even angrier. She used all her moves and her power increased greatly. The sudden increase in power brought more flaws. She pretended to reveal her Achilles heel. Chuli, who had lost her judgment, couldn't tell the real from the fake. Her spear pierced through the air with the power to break mountains. Ning Chen turned around and stepped into the middle palace. He instantly arrived in front of Chuli. He condensed his sword fingers and broke the sea of qi. With a soft groan, Chuli's body lost half of its power. However, she still endured the pain and fought back. Silly woman. Ning Chen knocked the former out with his palm. He didn't kill her. He was the one who shot the arrow. He knew very well whether it killed her or not. The hierarch of Eternal Night was planning something. He faked his death to deceive everyone present. Wasn't he afraid that this impulsive silly woman would be killed by him? The hierarch of Eternal Night was planning something. He faked his death to deceive everyone present. Wasn't he afraid that this impulsive silly woman would be killed by him? Chapter 348. The dark abyss was filled with a supreme aura. It was both sacred and demonic. The most mysterious place of the Eternal Night cult hid the most unknown history of the Divine Prefecture, and even the 5 regions. Master. Mi Jiang knelt in front of the demon statue and bowed his head in apology. Cult Master had died in the battle, and Chu Li's fate was unknown. The strength of the divine cult had been greatly reduced in one day, and more than half of its combat power had been lost. This really caught him unprepared. Bian Jiang, as the leader of the 3 martial crowns, your performance has disappointed me. A noble and cold voice came from the golem. It did not sound like a human, but more like a god who had created the world. Master, please forgive me. Mi Jiang kowtowed. From today onwards, the Eternal Night God sect will be under your command. Complete the mission I've given you as quickly as possible, ordered the cold voice. Subordinate obeys. It's just that the divine sect has suffered heavy losses, and subordinate strength is inferior to sect masters. I'm worried that I might fail sect master's trust, said Bai Jiang respectfully. Come forward. Yes. When Bai Jiang heard the order, he got up and stepped forward. Above the demonic statue, an incomparably vigorous vast vital energy fell and rushed directly into his body. The majestic divine power broke through the barriers of the realms and rushed into the 3 disasters with an unstoppable force. A pained cry sounded out as black chi spread out from Bai Jiang's body. His black hair fluttered, and his aura continuously rose until it reached the peak of the second calamity. Many thanks for the reward, Master. Bai Jiang endured the pain and knelt down. Now, you already have the strength to rival any expert in the Divine Prefecture. Don't disappoint me again. Withdraw. Yes. Mi Jiang got up and left. After Bai Jiang left, the devil chi returned to the dark abyss. The dark abyss regained its calm. With the gathering of the 7 essences, the existence behind the Eternal Night cult could send even more power into the world. The calamity of the Divine Prefecture was approaching. Night fell in desolate city, and the blood moon hung high in the sky. Ning Chen arrived as promised in front of the sword pool. He respectfully bowed and said, Senior Mubai, for today's battle, use your full strength to receive it. How many moves can you receive? Mubai calmly asked. 2 moves, Ning Chen answered honestly. Mubai nodded and raised his hand. The sword of primal chaos flew out of the sword pool and tore through the air, instantly arriving in front of Mubai. Ning Chen retreated and clenched his fists. The King of Hell's sword and Great Yin's green sparrow sword flew out at the same time. The two swords gathered wind and snow to block the sword of chaos. With a kung sound, the three swords faced each other. Bai Yi drew out Tenjiang, blocking the first sword. Right at this moment, Mu Bai, who had been standing in front of the sword pool, arrived in front of the primal chaos sword essence. With the sword in his right hand, he took another step forward. Ning Chen's silhouette transformed, trying to dodge the attack. However, the sword will followed him, and he couldn't dodge it in time. Was it fast? It was so fast that it was shocking. Pung! The Yama King's sword flew out and stabbed into the ground far away. The green sparrow sword had blocked the chaos sword essence, but it was still crying out in pain. In just 2 sword strikes, the disparity between their cultivations was revealed without a doubt. Ning Chen barely managed to block the first 2 strikes, but when he was about to use the third strike, his strength was already lacking. Sword-style formless sword. The formless sword struck out again. The chaos sword essence disappeared, and the sword slashed out in a line, gathering the sharpness of the world. A shadow flashed past, and thousands of sword shadows merged into one. The most concentrated sword slashed through the air. It was an unstoppable sword attack. Ning Chen no longer defended himself. The green sparrow gathered all of his Zhen Yuan and crossed with the chaos sword essence. One sword after another, it flew towards the white figure in front of him. With a kung sound, the sword finger blocked the green sparrow. The chaos sword essence stopped in front of Ning Chen's chest, and in the next moment, it flew back into the sword pool. Not bad. Mu Bai nodded. He had perfectly blocked the first 2 strikes. Although the third strike had exceeded his limit, this brat had always liked to hide his moves. In a real battle, he should be able to barely block it. The true meaning of the sword was fast, accurate, concentrated, and ever-changing. Being able to block the first 3 strikes was already enough. The rest of what he lacked was talent and hard work. This brat's talent was just average. As for hard work, he didn't need to worry about that. I've already done what I should do. If there's nothing important, don't bother me again. Leave. Mu Bai waved his hand. Thank you, senior, for your guidance. This junior will take his leave. Ning Chen once again bowed respectfully. He put away his sword and turned to leave. Grand Xia Junqi Hall. The matter of the alliance between the 3 dynasties had basically come to an end. The emperors of the Barbarian dynasty and the Northern Ming dynasty had solemnly stated that they would send out their troops as soon as possible to deal with the Eternal Night cult together. The experts of the 3 dynasties had all rushed to the western front of Grand Xia. The death of the Eternal Night cult master was the best opportunity. The Northern Ming Iron Cavalry used the Heaven's Gate Pass as an excuse to enter the first impregnable pass of Grand Xia. However, their purpose was different now. The Northern Ming Iron Cavalry that passed through the Heaven's Gate Pass was as terrifying as before. The 10,000 golden armored soldiers of the Barbarian dynasty were the first to leave under the lead of the Barbarian Crown Prince. Many martial experts protected them as they rushed to the western front. The Xiantian experts of the 3 dynasties quickly gathered to assist the army in their westward expedition. The vast flood made everyone see the change in the heavens. The 3 strongest empires of the Divine Prefecture had joined forces and forced the Eternal Night Army to retreat. The blood moon in the sky became more and more obvious as the days passed. It was as if it was covered in a thin layer of bloody mist, frightening the mind. In front of the Eternal Night cult, a red figure appeared. Flames burned, creating a scene of disaster. On the throne of the 3rd Divine Palace, a black-clothed figure snorted coldly. Black energy flickered as he turned into a stream of light and appeared in front of the flames. With a punch, vigorous true essence overturned the seas and rivers. The reborn Bai Zhang's strength was completely different from before, and it caused the world to tremble. The Eternal Night God Sect's hospitality is truly unflattering. Rong Lu shouted coldly as he raised his palm to meet the attack. Blood energy converged and collided with the black energy. Prove that you have the strength. Bai Jiang pushed his true essence to 30%, and it was like a falling mountain, suppressing the brilliant blood energy. Just what I wanted. Ronglu's eyes turned cold as a bloody light rose from his hands. He gathered the power of the 8 Desolaces, and gathered the spiritual energy of the world. There was a loud explosion, and the void shook. The two of them both retreated 30 meters. In this duel that had yet to decide a victor, they both used their strongest abilities. What business do you have with my eternal night cult? Bai Jiang withdrew his aura and asked. Alliance? Ronglu said word by word. A strange look flashed through Bai Jiang's eyes. Such an expert was indeed rare, but the price would definitely be high. What are your conditions? Bai Jiang asked calmly. Kill the Bodhi sword and steal the phoenix blood. Ronglu said coldly. Please come in and talk. Bai Jiang narrowed his eyes. Ronglu stepped forward. The two peak experts of the world walked together, each with their own thoughts. At the peak of the 9 heavens of the 4 extreme realms, one figure after another flew through the turbulent flow of space. It was unknown how long they had been traveling, but they were still rushing towards the divine continent. Ning Chen sat in his study day and night, looking at the reports from the imperial palace and the grand court, thinking about every step of the plan. This was the most critical moment, and there was no room for the slightest mistake. Marquis, the princess is awake. At this time, Ruoshi knocked on the study door. Hearing this, Ning Chen's eyes lit up. He immediately got up and walked out of the study. In the bedroom, Xianyu, who had been unconscious for over a month, finally opened her eyes. Her delicate face was slightly pale, and she looked even more delicate. The person that entered her eyes was familiar and gentle, so gentle that it didn't seem real. Xia Xinyu stretched out her hand, wanting to feel if it was real or fake, but halfway through, she didn't have the strength to do so. Ning Chen stepped forward and held her hand, saying softly, Princess, don't be afraid. We're already home. The touch was so real, so warm. Xia Xinyu opened her mouth and said something, but it was so soft that it couldn't be heard. Only Ning Chen, who was closest to her, heard it clearly. After being stripped of 80 to 90% of the 7 extinction force, Xianyu's body was still very weak. After saying that, she fell asleep again. Take good care of her. Ning Chen was silent for a moment. Then he left. The moon hung high in the sky, rushing through the wilderness. Behind him, Bodhi chased step by step. The golden figure was difficult to shake off. His footsteps became faster and faster as he flashed across the wilderness. Bodhi's salvation, stopping evil by killing. Suddenly, not far away, a powerful palm strike came. Black chi surged, and the terrifying power made the moonlight dim. Bodhi's eyes narrowed. His left hand formed a seal to block the attack. With a bang, sand flew up. At the same time, Ronglu's palm struck out, and a bloody light shot out, attacking Bodhi. Bai Jiang and Ronglu, the two peak experts of the world, blocked Bodhi's path of survival. This was also an opportunity for the two sides to form an alliance. Within the dust, Sualuo opened its blade, and a dazzling light shone. Bodhi looked at the two figures on his left and right. His calm eyes also flashed with a trace of seriousness. Bald donkey, your path has come to an end, said Ronglu coldly. Guests from the homeland of Western Buddha, are you satisfied with this arrangement? Bai Jiang's lips curled up in a murderous smile. Bodhi can only accept your hospitality. Bodhi's heart meditation, the Dharma is boundless. Facing the two experts, Bodhi once again opened his Buddha origin world. Buddha light rose, illuminating the world. The swastika rotated, turning 1,000 feet into a world of Buddha. A final struggle. Ronglu coldly snorted. His figure flashed, and his blood saber slashed down. Bright red light and killing intent were revealed. Bai Jiang also stepped forward, and a black chi condensed in his palm. The terrifying power didn't seem like the power of a martial artist. Bodhi's will pardon sins. Within the Buddha light, the ancient Pola Luo sword spun rapidly, drawing on Bodhi's true yuan. Endless clear saint energy gathered, slashing apart the sin-severing divine weapon. Blood splashed out. Ronglu had taken Bodhi's attack head-on, and was forced back several steps. He vomited blood. Drip. The sound of blood dripping was very light. Blood dripped from Bodhi's mouth. In front of him, Bai Jiang's palm landed on Bodhi's chest in exchange for a similar injury. Bodhi retreated half a step. His dermic seal transformed into a finger sword, forcing away the person in front of him. Sword Bodhi, exchange one move for another. How many moves can you take? Rong Lu wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and coldly mocked. Let's cut the crap. It's time to send him to the west to see Buddha. Black chi spread out from Baizhang's body. It was endless, and it constantly devoured the Buddha light. This was his final move. Rong Lu didn't say anything else. His true chi circulated, and his blood yuan rapidly spread within the Buddha light. The Rong tribe's forbidden move had appeared once more. Amitba. The path of Bodhi's will was difficult to find. Just at this critical moment, an azure-red figure charged into the battle. With a single saber, he cut open the path. Chapter 349. The sudden change caused by Jiang and Rong Lu to be unable to react in time. They reacted in a panic, and with a bang, they were forced back several steps. Who are you? Baizhang's eyes turned cold. The dark aura around his body surged. His body moved like a stream of light, instantly arriving in front of the attacker. The power of his palm shook the sky, mercilessly oppressing. Just a passerby. The red-robed man casually replied. His saber slashed through the air. He wasn't at a disadvantage in front of Baizhang, who had been reborn. The saber and the palm clashed. Clanging sounds rang out continuously. The splendor of life became even more beautiful in the midst of the killing. Let's go. After several quick exchanges, the man's saber forced away the person in front of him. He took Jian Bodhi and left the battlefield. Rong Lu tried to stop him, but it was too late. Looking at the two of them leaving, his expression sank. Just who was this strange expert? When did such an expert appear in the Divine Continent? Asked Rong Lu. Although he hadn't been in the Divine Continent for long, he knew that there had never been such a peak expert. I've never seen such an expert. However, such an expert shouldn't be unknown. Baizhang's eyes flashed. There was definitely something fishy about this matter. He had to figure it out as soon as possible. 300 miles away, the red-robed man and Jian Bodhi appeared. Jian Bodhi condensed his yuan and suppressed his injuries. Many thanks for your help, benefactor. Grandmaster is too polite. It was nothing, smiled the man. May I ask for benefactor's name? Asked Jian Bodhi. I am Li Luo, said the man. Jian Bodhi thought for a moment. He was sure he had never heard of this name before, so he committed it to memory. Grandmaster doesn't suspect this name is fake? Smiled Li Luo. There had never been a three-disaster expert called Li Luo in the Divine Continent. If it were him, he would also suspect it. A name is just a title. It can't be determined if it's real or fake. The person who helped Jian Bodhi is called Li Luo, and he is only Li Luo, said Jian Bodhi calmly. Grandmaster's words are reasonable. It was I who was thinking too much. Li Luo freely smiled. Right, does Grandmaster come from the Western Buddha homeland? Asked Li Luo. Yes. Jian Bodhi nodded. So that red-robed monster also came from the Western Buddha homeland? Continued Li Luo. Okay, Jian Bodhi replied. Hey Grandmaster, you're in the wrong here. The Divine Continent is already in a complete mess. What are you doing here? Li Luo said helplessly. This poor monk is ashamed. Jian Bodhi apologized. I was just joking. Grandmaster, please don't take it seriously. Li Luo softly chuckled. Soon after, he glanced at the sky that was about to brighten and asked, Grandmaster is injured and needs a safe place to recuperate. May I know where Grandmaster is preparing to go? I can send Grandmaster off. Jian Bodhi thought for a moment and said, I have some ties with the Jiming Marquis of Great Xia. I can only trouble you for a few days. Hearing the words knowing destiny, a strange light flashed through Li Luo's eyes. He nodded. Let's go. The two of them headed east. When the sun was high in the sky, the two of them appeared outside the royal city of Grand Xia. Li Luo halted his steps, a smile on his face. Grandmaster, I shall escort you up to here. Benefactor, are you not entering the city? Sword Bodhi asked. No, I have some grudges with the Marquis. Now is not the time to meet him. Li Luo shook his head. This Sword Bodhi respectfully sends off Benefactor. The Sword Bodhi bowed and sent him off. Until we meet again. Li Luo smiled. With a move of his feet, his figure turned into a shadow and disappeared in a flash. Sword Bodhi watched the former leave before turning around and heading back to the city. Inside the Jiming Manor, Ning Chun received the news of Jian Bodhi's visit. Showing a strange expression, he got up to greet him. "Senior Jian Bodhi, are you injured?" Ning Chun noticed the former's unstable breathing and asked with concern. This monk was careless and fell into Rong Lu's trap. "I received some injuries, so I came to disturb you for a few days," Jian Bodhi explained. "Senior is too polite, this way please." Ning Chun led the way to the backyard. After the northern Ming delegation left, the manor returned to its usual tranquility. The old steward was in charge of the front yard and Ruoshi was in charge of the backyard. Ningxi was a silly girl who couldn't even take care of herself. The arrangement for Bodhi's treatment was naturally left to Ruoshi. Most of the medicine in the Marquis estate was bought from the Duan pharmacy. The Marquis estate's silver was personally allocated by the eldest grandson. In theory, they shouldn't be able to afford Duan Pharmacy's heavenly treasures. However, Duan Pharmacy was the property of Zhang Xuan's family. If they really couldn't afford it, they would owe it first and pay it back slowly. "Shopkeeper," Ruoshi came again with a smile and handed over a prescription. The shopkeeper saw the girl in front of him coming to get the medicine and chuckled softly. But when he took the prescription, his face immediately turned green. "Lu girl, tell your Marquis to prepare the money." Although the shopkeeper felt the pinch, he still took the prescription and handed it over. "Can I see the account book?" Ruoshi chuckled. "Here." The shopkeeper casually moved a stack of account books from the counter and said, "Every book here is the account book." Ruoshi was speechless and smiled embarrassedly. So it turned out that there were already so many. "Shopkeeper, your medicine is too expensive. The silver that her ladyship allocates to the manor every month is not enough to get the medicine once." Ruoshi's confidence was obviously not enough. She didn't know the cost of firewood and rice. The Marquis's backyard needed a variety of elixirs all year round. Forget about the daylily, this was the Marquis's friend. Why should even the princess's expenses be counted in the Marquis's account? "You go and reflect to her ladyship." Most of the prices of these herbs were set by her ladyship in the past. The shopkeeper said in a bad mood. "I don't dare." Ruoshi shook her head vigorously and said. Even the Marquis didn't dare to say anything in front of her ladyship. She was just an ordinary girl. How could she dare to bargain with her ladyship? "I also don't dare. So let your Marquis quickly return the money," the shopkeeper suggested. "Well, I will go back and talk to the Marquis." Ruoshi smiled sweetly and hurried away with the medicine. The shopkeeper smiled helplessly. This girl has changed a lot over the years. That brat doesn't understand a woman's heart. But this girl looks very satisfied. Inside the Marquis's mansion, Ning Chun and Jian Bodhi were talking and understanding the ins and outs of the matter. After hearing about this three disasters powerhouse named Li Luo, Ning Chun pondered for a long time and roughly thought of a person. But he couldn't be sure for the time being. Only after meeting him can he confirm whether this Li Luo was the person he was thinking of. In addition, that Bai Jiang suddenly had a strength that didn't lose to any powerhouse in the world. It was really incredible. Now that Rong Lu and Bai Jiang had joined forces, the balance that had been pulled back once again by the Eternal Night cult. With two supreme experts and the demonized Zi, their future path was still as difficult to traverse as before. Senior Jian Bodhi, even in the Buddhist homeland of the West where Buddhism is flourishing, there is no way to turn a demonized person back? At the end of the conversation, Ning Chun once again held a glimmer of hope and asked, "There is no way." Jian Bodhi shook his head and said, "For thousands of years, there have been several demonized people in the Buddhist homeland of the West. The sages of the past also tried to turn them back, but in the end, they all failed and caused a great disaster. Later on, as long as someone became a demonized person, according to the rules of the Buddhist homeland, they were all killed." Hearing this, the last glimmer of hope in Ning Chun's heart sank. The headmaster had also warned that once a demonized person became a demonized person, it would be difficult to turn back. But was the heavens really not willing to leave a way out? Zi had been kind all her life. What was wrong with that? Why should kind people be bullied? Why should they suffer? Senior, please rest first. This junior won't disturb you any longer. Ningchen cupped his hands and bowed, then left the room. In the study, Ningchen pushed open the bookshelf. Behind him, a secret room appeared. In the secret room, a woman in gorgeous armor was thinking about something. When she saw the person who walked in, her expression immediately flashed with a strong killing intent. Marquis Jiming, what do you want to do by trapping me here? Chuli said coldly. The person in front of her had sealed her qi, but didn't kill her. Clearly he had other plans. Let's make a deal. You tell me one thing, and I'll tell you one thing, Ningchen said. Dream on. I won't say anything. Chuli snorted coldly and mocked. The Eternal Night Hierarch is not dead, Ningchen said indifferently. Chuli's delicate body trembled. Disbelief flashed across her gorgeous face. How could it be? You're lying. How could the Hierarch still be alive? Chuli's eyes were full of disbelief. She clearly felt the Hierarch's aura rapidly weakening. Even his heartbeat and meridians were almost undetectable. Are you interested now? Can we sit down and talk? Ningchen walked to a table and sat down. What do you want to know? Chuli sat opposite him and said coldly. Who is the person behind the Eternal Night Hierarch? Ningchen asked seriously. I don't know much. I only know that he has two names. One is Seven Ju Tian. Chuli paused, and a trace of fear appeared in her eyes. The other name is Lord of Hell. Ningchen's eyes narrowed. Everyone knew that the Eternal Night Hierarch worshipped Seven Ju Tian. However, the name Lord of Hell was really shocking. Whether in Wuxia or in this world, Lord Yama was the god who controlled the world of death. The person behind the Eternal Night cult was given such a title. Was this person really so powerful? I've already answered your question. Now it's time for you to answer mine. Chuli said in a low voice. That arrow missed. It didn't hurt the Eternal Night Hierarch's heart at all. The reason why it looked so exaggerated was because Jetian's endurance was limited. It was shattered by your Hierarch's body. That's why when it flew out from his back, blood sprayed all over the sky. This time, it was basically a show directed and acted out by himself. Of course, he probably didn't expect you to chase after him so impulsively, Ningchen explained slowly. Chuli's eyes flashed when she heard Ningchen's words. She carefully thought about it, and finally sorted it out. She came back to her senses, and looked at the young man in front of her. Is this why you didn't kill me? It's one of the reasons. I also want to see what your Hierarch is up to. Also, I really need a hostage right now. As for the reason, you'll know soon enough, Ningchen said calmly. Chapter 350. In a strange space, after the seven essences gathered, an illusory figure floated up and down, getting clearer and clearer by the day. Then an incomparably powerful pressure loomed. It was like the origin of the whole world, looking down on the world unreachable. The dark aura gathered, and a huge black figure appeared. It did not look like a human, nor was it a monster. It was an ancient existence, indescribably noble. King. Under the black shadow, numerous figures knelt down. They were equally powerful and terrifying. Every one of them was stronger than the three disasters of humanity. However, even such powerful existences were filled with respect in front of this noble aura. They did not dare to overstep their boundaries. The high and mighty figure was like a god. Just by standing there, it gave people an unreachable heavy pressure that could not be described with words. At the same time, in the divine prefecture, the blood on the moon was getting more and more obvious. In the imperial city of the Great Xia, Meng Xuanji came from the four extremes to ask about the reason. Now that the divine prefecture and the four extremes were connected, the four extremes would definitely be affected by the changes in the divine prefecture. A terrifying expert is about to appear behind the Eternal Night God sect. Ningchen explained the whole story in a simple manner. How strong is it? Meng Xuanji asked. I don't know. Ningchen shook his head and said, I've experienced it once at close range. However, an existence at such a level has already exceeded my knowledge, and it's difficult for me to describe it clearly. The only feeling I have is that even an ancient sage at the peak of the three disasters would definitely lose before it. Meng Xuanji's expression changed. The ancient sages were already invincible existences in the world, and it was difficult for them to appear again in thousands of years. She could not imagine what kind of monster an existence beyond the ancient sages would be. Once such an existence descended, no one could fight against it. The Great Xia, Northern Meng, and the barbarian dynasty have joined forces to take down the Eternal Night sect in the shortest time possible. However, the most difficult thing is that no one knows how to stop it. Ningchen expressed his worries. Joining forces to take down the sect was the only way out. But it was also the only thing they could do now. No one knew when that terrifying existence would descend, or what kind of conditions it would require. Now there were two people who were most likely to know. One was the leader of the three martial crowns, Bai Jiang, who was mentioned by Chu Li, and the other was the hierarch of the Eternal Night, who was pretending to be dead. What are your plans? Meng Xuanji asked seriously. Ning Chen smiled bitterly. What kind of plan could he have? He wasn't omnipotent. Now that he didn't know what was going on, he could only take one step at a time. Meng Xuanji was startled when she saw the bitter smile on the former's face. Soon after, she sighed softly in her heart. She had subconsciously asked the question earlier. After knowing each other for so long, in her impression, there seemed to be nothing in the world that could stump the person in front of her. Now that she thought about it, no matter how smart the man in front of her was, he was still human. He would get hurt, he would get tired, and there would also be times when he was powerless. People who were too strong would always subconsciously make others rely on them, causing everyone to overlook the fact that he also had times when he was tired and didn't know where to go. This was the first time she had seen Ning Chen like this. It was also the first time she truly realized that the person before her was just an ordinary person like her. He was not the tireless and calculative monster that he was in the past. Next, I will try to find a way to weaken the battle strength of the three disasters of the Eternal Night cult as soon as possible. Then, I will force the Eternal Night cult leader to show himself. As for the rest of the road, it will depend on the actions of Bian Jiang, or the Eternal Night cult leader. Ning Chen told her his plan. Although the road ahead was difficult, he had to find a way to go on. The Eternal Night cult was the root of the disaster. Since he didn't know how to stop it, he might as well take down the cult first. If he pushed too hard, the fox's tail would be revealed sooner or later. If there's anything I can do, just let me know. Meng Xuanji expressed her attitude and said seriously. Okay. Ning Chen nodded and softly agreed. Day after day passed. On the western front of the Great Xia, the reinforcements sent by the northern Meng imperial court and the barbarian dynasty came in batches. Even the Eternal Night cult, which controlled dozens of dynasties in the west, could barely cope with the alliance of the three strongest dynasties in the Divine Prefecture. The appearance of the demon monarch in Bianjiang, two powerful experts of the three disasters, changed the situation of the battle. The alliance of the three dynasties was hindered and couldn't advance an inch. Marquis' victorious return barely held back Bianjiang, but none of the Xiantian experts of the three dynasties could stop the demon monarch. With a single demonic sword, he was invincible. The demon monarch, who had stepped into the three disasters, displayed terrifying battle prowess. He was almost as strong as the martial monarch of the past, shocking everyone in the world. After Ning Chen received the battle report, he was silent for a long time. He knew better than anyone that Zi was very strong. Before he stepped into the three disasters, he could already fight against the three disasters. Now that he had stepped into the three disasters, his strength was close to the strongest in the world. Senior, let's go. Ning Chen said. Okay. Jian Bodhi, who had just recovered from his injuries, walked out and followed Ning Chen to the west. In the Eternal Night cult, a letter from the Great Xia camp was delivered. Bianjiang read it and frowned. The content of the letter was very simple. The hostage exchange was Chu Li for Xia Zi. Bianjiang thought for a moment, and didn't hesitate too much. He directly replied. Compared to the demon monarch, he trusted Chu Li more. In addition, this was an opportunity. If used well, it could severely injure the Great Xia's peak battle prowess. Aside from his master, how could anyone suppress a person who had become a devil? In the Great Xia's Blackwater Army camp, Marquis triumphant returned past Bianzhang's letter to the youth in front of him. I accept. Ningchen received the letter and carefully read it. Then he clenched his fist, shattering the paper. Senior Marquis triumphant return. Your future path will be even more difficult. Ningchen looked to the west. Don't worry. Zhongyong, I, and the others will do our best to help you. Marquis triumphant return solemnly promised. The youth in front of him had already surpassed him. In just a few short years, the latter had grown into the most indispensable pillar of the Great Xia. Now it was time for the inheritance to arrive. Not far away, Jian Bodhi looked at the two martial Marquis of Great Xia in the tent, and was silent in his heart. Although human nature was selfish, there would always be some pure people who would work hard to persevere in their own beliefs and never waver. The reason why Great Xia had flourished for 1,000 years was clearly displayed in this tent. In the end, the inheritance was the greatest foundation. In the cold night, the cold wind rustled. A crescent moon hung high in the sky. In the tent, everyone was seriously discussing the details of every step. At this crucial moment, every step could not be wrong. At daybreak, Ningchen looked at the Great Xia war god, who had fought for the Great Xia for his entire life. Senior Marquis triumphant return. You can't suppress the three calamities any longer. Otherwise, when it descends, there will be no possibility of passing it. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. Marquis triumphant return didn't want to talk too much about this topic. Looking at the bright sky, he said, Let's go, the appointed time has arrived. The army gathered and the drums sounded. The soldiers of the Blackwater Army were ready to go. Following the Great Xia war god's command, they headed west. 15 kilometers away, the Evernight Army was also waiting in formation. At the very front, two figures stood quietly. Their bodies were as deep as the abyss, and were particularly eye-catching. The head of the martial crown, Bianzhang, and the eternal night demon monarch. The demon monarch didn't have a demon sword in his hand, and his qi was sealed. However, just standing there made people tremble. In front of the Blackwater Army, Marquis triumphant return walked over with Chu Li. His gorgeous armor was dazzling under the morning sun. Seeing the familiar figure in front of him, a trace of gentleness flashed through Bai Zhang's cold eyes. He pushed the demon monarch whose qi was sealed forward. One for one, fair and just. Both sides were on high alert. Knowing that there might be changes in the deal, they carefully observed the people around them who might appear at any time. Bai Zhang looked around and didn't see the Jiming Marquis. He sneered in his heart. The Jiming Marquis must have already arrived. If they wanted to make a sudden move, they would need to have the ability. Hopefully, they would be satisfied with the gift he had given them. The two walked past each other. Just as Xia Zi arrived in front of Marquis triumphant return, the demonic aura around him erupted and broke through the seal. He clenched his hand, and a demon sword flew out from the army. Startled, Marquis triumphant return drew his glorious arrow saber and blocked the sword. At the same time, Bai Zhang rushed in front of Chu Li. He condensed his energy and quickly shook open the seal in the latter's qi. At this moment, a plain-looking figure walked over. Bodhi appeared. Sua Luo unsheathed and slashed at Bai Zhang. Is this your trump card? Rong Lu, you should deal with your old opponent. Bai Zhang coldly snorted and flipped his palm to meet the Sua Luo sword. That's exactly what I was thinking. A scarlet figure appeared and blood essence surged, trapping Bodhi. Chu Li, let's deal with Marquis triumphant return together. Bai Zhang freed his hand and looked at the woman beside him. Chu Li nodded. She didn't say anything. Her figure flashed, and she instantly entered the battle. 3 of the strongest experts of the current era trapped the Grand Xia's war god. Triumphant return was in danger. Military might spreads 10,000 miles. As the crisis descended, Marquis triumphant return raised his glorious arrow saber. His aura surged and his military might was unparalleled. The demon monarch stepped forward. Demonic aura curled around his demon sword. A sword of reincarnation shook the 9 heavens. With a bang, sand flew everywhere. Triumphant return retreated half a step. The corner of his mouth dyed red. In a crisis that couldn't be resolved, Every step was difficult. Bodhi was trapped and couldn't help. Knowing Marquis, if you still don't appear, you'll have to wait to collect Marquis Triumphant Return's corpse. Bai Jiang sneered. He swept his spiritual sense around, but he still didn't find Knowing Destiny. At the same time, he became more vigilant and his attacks became fiercer. There was no response. Bai Jiang's eyes turned cold. Black aura surged out of his body. He was about to completely end Marquis Triumphant Return's life. The vast energy continued to spread. Suddenly, Chu Li changed the direction of his palm and imprinted a palm on Bai Jiang's chest. Bai Jiang didn't have time to react. It was so sudden that he vomited blood. His eyes were filled with disbelief. How was this possible? Go to hell. Xiao Chen's soul-locking palm caused wind and snow to surge. Xiao Chen's appearance in the gorgeous armor changed, and the aura that the Chaos Scroll had concealed completely burst out. Xiao Chen pushed his palm forward, adding 30% more force. It's you! Bai Jiang's expression immediately became sinister. He was filled with endless hatred. Chapter 351. After this deadly palm strike, the surging black aura surged and spread out endlessly. Behind the gorgeous armor, black hair danced in the wind, and his appearance changed. He was cold and merciless as he activated his true origin energy. The heavily injured Bai Jiang had blood dripping from his mouth. His aura was extremely unstable and was on the verge of dissipating. However, at the last moment, the black gas gathered back into Bai Jiang's body. You're still not dead. Ning Chen snorted. He clenched his right hand, and a red wooden box opened behind the Blackwater army. A green sparrow flew out of its sheath and into the battle. Knowing Destiny held his sword, and his aura changed. His sword was sharp and piercing. With his injuries, Bai Jiang found it hard to summon his true origin energy. He lost the absolute suppression of his cultivation and was restrained. Meng Xuanji, I'll leave this to you. Ning Chen had other missions, so he didn't want to fight. He shouted and dashed out. At the same time, a beautiful figure dashed in, and the battle changed instantly. The gilded feather saber was sharp, and it shot out rays of killing light, trapping Wu Guan. In the battle between Marquis Triumphant Return and the Demon Monarch, Knowing Destiny joined the battle. The great Xia war god moved quickly and slashed at Rong Lu. Rong Lu was shocked, and he used his saber to block the attack. The two sabers clashed, and a huge explosion occurred. Sword Bodhi retreated, and Sua Luo took the lead to fight the Eternal Night Demon Monarch with Knowing Destiny. In the blink of an eye, the opponents had changed. Marquis Triumphant Return and Meng Xuanji focused on delaying, preventing Rong Lu and Bai Jiang from coming to help. The most important battle was Sword Bodhi and Ning Chen working together to fight the Demon Monarch. Today they would bring the Emperor back. Demon Sword bury the heavens. The Demon Monarch waved the demon sword in his hand, and thousands of sword intents appeared. The bury the heavens sword surged out, and its powerful aura destroyed everything in its path. When they clashed again, the power was completely different. Ning Chen's expression was solemn. He gathered the phoenix image into his body, and his sword spun rapidly and pierced through the air. Knowing Destiny retreated, and the Sua Luo ancient sword approached. It shone with golden light as it fought the demon sword. One retreated while the other advanced. Their tacit cooperation was flawless. However, the emperor who had the demon sword in his hand was not afraid at all. He fought against two powerhouses with one sword, and was not at a disadvantage. Rong Lu and Bai Jiang were shocked. Although they knew that this demon lord was not simple, they did not expect him to be so strong. King Wu of the Great Xia dynasty had never been weaker than anyone else in his life. Even though he had joined the devil path, he was still a genius among the devil path. The brilliance of the three swords intersecting drew streaks of killing splendor under the morning sun. In the most intense confrontation, a moment of distraction would result in death. Friend, your sword is too weak. The devil cultivator's voice was as cold as an abyss. There was not the slightest emotion in his pitch-black eyes. He had given up everything. Only the sword in his hand could be trusted. Don't be affected, Sword Bodhi said solemnly as he waved his sword to block the devil's sword. Ning Chen nodded, and did not say a word. The green sparrow condensed into frost, and the sword moved as fast as the wind. In the beginning, the two swords admired each other. Later, they trusted each other with life and death. Now they were facing each other in life and death. How cruel was that? However, only by winning with the sword could he bring his friend back. The demon sword and the emperor sword hummed in the wind. Killing light scattered, and terrifying sword scars appeared around the two of them. Sword Bodhi waved his sword to help, and the Sualuo ancient sword circulated. He used all his strength to help knowing destiny suppress the powerful devil cultivator. On the other two battlefields, Marquis' triumphant return and Meng Xuanji's battle was also not easy. However, they could not afford to lose this battle. The two of them could only persevere. Blood splattered across the three battlefields. For the sake of their perseverance, no one was willing to back down even a little. The extremely intense battle shocked everyone. The strongest people in the world were all gathered on the battlefield. As they intersected, snowflakes and flowers of blood bloomed magnificently at the crossing of life and death. Scroll of the Earth, 1,000 Earth Revolutions. The scroll of the Earth was unleashed. The Earth rumbled as it rose, forming a concave shape that quickly closed in. With a bang, the devil cultivator was trapped. Demon sword reincarnation. Reincarnation spun, and a half-moon sword chi cut through the earth. A black-clothed figure swept out, instantly arriving in front of knowing destiny. The demon sword showed off its might, and killing light shone brightly. Ning Chen took half a step back, and the cyan sparrow turned around. The sharp snow-white light reversed the direction of the devil cultivator. Fast swords clashed. One was fast, and the other was even faster. The two strongest people of the younger generation were truly fighting to the death at this moment. They did not hold back at all, and their abilities shocked the world. Strong and still strong. Only after seeing it with their own eyes did they realize that the former king and marquis of the Grand Xia had reached such a terrifying level. Spiritual yuan appeared above their heads. It was a heaven and earth phenomenon caused by battle intent reaching the limit. The sound of swords reverberated, and it was incomparably powerful. Close friends fought not because of enmity or hatred, but because of a chance. Giving oneself a chance was also giving the other party a chance. The road ahead was difficult. Accompanied by the sonorous sound of swords, life and death intertwined. When one was lost, no matter how difficult it was, one had to reach out and pull him back. Scroll of the Earth, earth destruction and mountain destruction. The falling sword light that soared into the sky turned the area around him into a desolation. Boundless sword intent surged like a sword rain that was moving in reverse. It was majestic, grand and unavoidable. The demon jumped up, and demonic energy wrapped around the demon sword. Circle after circle spread out, and then he descended from the sky. The momentum of his descent brought with it supreme demonic might, breaking the sword rain that filled the sky. The tips of the two swords clashed, and the shockwaves shook the heavens and the earth. Sand and dust flew everywhere. The brilliant battle made people look over. In the distance, the experts of the Black Water Army were silent. If such a strong emperor was not forced to become a demon, the current Grand Xia would not need to fear anyone. Unfortunately, there was no such thing as hypotheticals in the world. An emperor who became a demon was filled with killing intent, and one could not see the coldness and warmth of human nature. The sword light slashed past his ear, and his black hair fell. He held his sword and slashed across the sky. A sword followed, and the rustling of the wind could not keep up with the changes of the sword. There was no turning back in this battle, and it would only end when one side was defeated. It was unknown when the sword Bodhi had withdrawn from the battle. The ancient sword had returned to its scabbard, and the leaves of the Sora rustled. The golden brilliance was dazzling as it gathered the Buddha energy. This was a battle that could not be lost, and it made people more and more nervous. The sword was held by the devil, and it was also the persistence of the knowing destiny state. With a pung sound, the two sides of the sword became clear. The demonic sword moved in the opposite direction, drawing out a brilliant streak of blood. Ning Chen endured his injuries and changed the direction of his sword, knocking away the demon sword. At the same time, He stretched out his left hand and grabbed Ning Chen's right shoulder. The wind and snow surged and the freezing air surged. The scroll of life was pushed to its peak, forcefully obstructing the movements of the demonic cultivators. "Senior!" Ning Chen shouted in a deep voice. Amidst the wind and snow, his aura rose crazily. Phoenix cries resounded in the sky, and a dazzling blood mist burst out from his body. Under the pressure, the demonic energy fiercely counterattacked, gushing out like a tide. This was the most direct confrontation of foundation and cultivation, causing the battle to enter its most dangerous phase. Blood continuously dripped from the corner of Ning Chen's mouth. He endured the pain all over his body to buy time for the Bodhi sword. Outside the battle, the Bodhi sword chanted and Sua Luo guided the light. The Buddhist 6 syllables appeared and turned into golden chains, trapping the demonic cultivators. The Bodhi sword suppressed the devil sovereign, and the scroll of life increased the power of the chains, trapping the sovereign within. The surging demonic energy, cold energy, and Bodhi sword collided rapidly in the air. The mouths of the Bodhi sword, knowing destiny's state, and the demonic cultivators were all dyed red. Terrifying true essence fluctuations shook the surrounding Tin Li, causing large cracks to appear. The Bodhi sword and Ning Chen took another step forward, forcefully enduring their injuries. At this crucial moment, how could they allow any failure? The chain-shaped swastika continued to revolve. Under the joint efforts of the two, it finally entered the demonic cultivators' bodies, forcefully locking down the surging demonic energy. Seeing that he had succeeded, Ning Chen retreated from the battle. His figure flashed, instantly arriving beside Meng Xuanji, who was in the most critical situation. His sword split open the wind and clouds, blocking Bai Zhang's killing move. "Retreat!" With an order, the 4 quickly left the battlefield, rushing towards the army behind. The demonic cultivators and the demonic sword were both taken away. The difficult battle thus came to an end. Bai Jiang wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and looked at the 4 retreating. Killing intent surged in his eyes, but he didn't chase after them. Knowing Destiny State's group had clearly come prepared. If they chased after them now, there might be an ambush waiting for them. The 4 arrived at the Blackwater Army's camp. After a huge battle, they were all heavily injured. Ning Chen, Meng Xuanji, and the Bodhi sword didn't stay for long. After stabilizing their injuries, they brought the demonic cultivators back to Grand Xia's imperial city. Inside a sealed stone room in the Knowing Destiny Marquis manor, the demonic cultivators stood silently. His deep eyes were cold and calm, without any ripples. In front of the stone room, the Bodhi sword was chanting in the language of heaven, turning into rays of Buddha light that pressed down on the demonic cultivators. A trace of pain flashed through the demonic cultivator's eyes. As he continued to chant, blood flowed out from his eyes and ears. The unyielding demonic cultivators didn't say a word and endured the pain. His tall and straight body didn't bend at all. Outside the stone room, Ning Chen looked at his friend, who was bleeding from his 7 orifices. Although he couldn't bear it, he forced himself to harden his heart. The sun rose and set. From night to morning, and then from morning to day, the Bodhi sword continued to purify the demonic cultivators' demonic qi. One day and night passed, but the demonic cultivators were still unyielding. If they couldn't purify the demonic qi, then even the supreme Bodhi sword wouldn't be able to do anything. The demonic cultivators closed their eyes and blood dripped out. Under the Bodhi sword's power, it was as if 10,000 swords were stabbing into his body. Bodhi waved his hand, and the Sura sword appeared. The Bodhi sword's Bodhi sword continuously flowed out. An hour later, the Bodhi sword left, and the door to the stone room slowly closed. "It's not working?" asked Ning Chen bitterly. "The demonic qi devours the heart, and cannot be purified. Furthermore, there's even worse news. This person's soul is not in his body. It should have been taken by someone else," said the Bodhi sword. Ning Chen's eyes turned cold. With the 3 souls incomplete, life and death were no longer under the control of the body. With Ziyi's strength, even Bai Jiang and the Eternal Night Hierarch wouldn't be able to easily suppress her. It was clear who had taken her soul. "Ning Chen, how is royal brother?" Xianyu walked over with Ruashi's support. Her beautiful face was still sickly pale. When the cold wind blew, she trembled slightly. Ningchen took off his clothes and covered her with them. He retracted the bitterness and coldness in his eyes and gently said, "He's fine. It's just that it's a little troublesome to remove the demonic qi from Zi's body. However, I will find a solution as soon as possible. Didn't you say that I'm the smartest person among us?" You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.